Chapter 802. But I can't wait. Yuro said it naturally and relaxedly. However, it was also this natural and relaxed attitude that revealed her true nature. One day seemed like 3 years. There were still several hours until tomorrow morning, but for some people these hours were longer than 1 day, 1 month, or even 1 year. Yuro didn't want to wait. The man she liked lived next door. She could see him in a few steps. Why should she wait until tomorrow morning? Who would care about the neighbor's slander or the man's family's contempt? As for being reserved, she wouldn't care about it. Why did the word reserved have to be imposed on women? Why didn't men know about being reserved? Fang Yan looked at Yiro's profile and said softly, I shouldn't wait until tomorrow morning. I should ask you out tonight and hold you in my arms. Yiro turned to look at Fang Yan and said, Don't. Someone is watching. You don't care about it anyway. Fang Yan held Yiro in his arms and let her head lean on his shoulder. He said, I can't wait to do this. I don't want to wait for a second. Ro, I didn't expect you to be so cute when you say love words. Yiro raised her eyebrows and asked, Did I say love words? You did. You said, but I can't wait. These words were words of love. The sweetest love words in the world. Fang Yan said with absolute certainty. Yiro nodded and said, So this is love words. Your love words are also very nice. Fang Yan held back his laughter and asked, Which love words are nicer? You said, I can't wait to do this. I don't want to wait for a second. Yiro said softly. I'm very happy to hear that. Hearing you say that you're happy to hear this, I'm also very happy. Yiro opened her mouth and gave up helplessly. She said, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. Hold me tight. Yiro gave Fang Yan a hug, but when she saw someone walking over, she pushed him away immediately. Fang Yan felt wronged and said, Do you know that in a normal relationship, if a girl does this kind of action, it will hurt a man's self-esteem? Yiro nodded and said, I know. But I think you're different. You're right, I'm different from them. Fang Yan grinned and said, They are all little kids. How can they be compared with a mature man like me? We are more broad-minded and can tolerate more things that young people can't bear. You are thick-skinned so you can take more blows. You shouldn't feel hurt. The corners of Yiro's mouth curled up with a pleasant smile. She was willing to attack Fang Yan like this and tell his friends some jokes about Fang Yan's shamelessness. Fang Yan definitely didn't know that when they were young, she was actually very envious of Fang Yan's friends wherever he went. Whether it was when he bullied her or did other bad things, there would always be a group of friends around his age who would cheer for him. Of course, there were also boos. No matter what, they all liked him very much. Even her cousin Yi Fengxing was one of them. At that time she was always alone. You misunderstand me. Fang Yan said with a bitter smile. Yiro stopped under an old willow tree by the river. She looked at the dark and deep river with a trace of silver floating on it and asked, Fang Yan, how are you? I'm very good. Fang Yan said with a smile. What about the Jiang family? I hope they're not so good. I knew you're this kind of person. Yiro's eyes brightened and her voice became light. No matter how strong your opponents are, you won't be easily defeated by them. In the past, the Xianxia military department was an opponent that we had to look up to. But in the end they still lost to you. Although I know you're sincerely praising me, I still can't help but want to correct a mistake. No matter how strong my opponents are, I won't be defeated by them. You used the word easily. Using the word easily doesn't sound right. It sounds like they can defeat me if they put in a bit more effort. That's impossible. But it's still very difficult, right? Yiro asked. It's very difficult. The smile on Fang Yan's face gradually disappeared. He said with a heavy voice, It's not easy to be an opponent like the Jiang family. If you're not careful, you'll lose everything. That won't happen. Yiro said. What won't happen? Even if you lose, you won't lose everything. A faint blush finally appeared on Yiro's cheeks. She turned her eyes to the surface of Shihizi and said softly, You still have me. Fang Yan beamed and said, Ro, why are you so cute tonight? I feel like I'm not afraid of you anymore. Yiro stared at Fang Yan and asked, Were you afraid of me before? I wasn't afraid. I just respected you a little. I couldn't help but want to respect you. But I was still afraid. Yiro said. I really wasn't afraid. If I was afraid of you, why would I want to marry you? Am I right? Fang Yan, I want to talk to you about something. Ro, I also want to talk to you about something. Fang Yan looked at Yi Ro and said with a serious face. Yi Ro pondered for a moment and looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully. She nodded and said, okay. What do you want to say? You know about the existence of Lu Chaoga, right? Yes. You two used to live together in Rosefinch. When Chiba challenged you in the Ministry of War, I saw her in the small courtyard where you lived. Yi Ro had a very good memory. She certainly wouldn't forget that she had seen Lu Chaoga before. Pausing for a moment, he added, a very capable and charming woman. When she saw me, there was wariness and hostility in her eyes. But she didn't know about it. Between me and her, Fang Yan dodged her eyes and didn't dare to look into Yi Ro's eyes. Before seeing Yi Ro, he felt that he had made enough mental preparation. He felt that it was his fault and he had to bear the responsibility. He wanted to confess to Yi Ro. He wanted to beg for Yi Ro's forgiveness or accept Yi Ro's unforgiveness. In any case, he had to let Yi Ro know. Otherwise, if the truth was exposed, it would hurt Yi Ro and Lu Chaoga more. Of course, the current situation itself was a kind of injury. Have you slept together? Yi Ro asked aloud. Can you imagine how Fang Yan felt at this moment? He just wanted to drink some water, but someone fired a powerful water gun and sprayed it on his face. Fang Yan stared at Yi Ro and asked in surprise, how do you know? Grandpa told me. Yi Ro said expressionlessly. I've only heard of people who set up their fathers. How could there be someone who set up their grandson? Fang Yan felt that he was killed by the old man in his family. Didn't we agree that, let me solve this matter by myself? Didn't we agree that, I must confess by myself and no one can help me? Didn't we agree that I shouldn't hide it for the rest of my life? Grandpa, what the hell are you playing at? Don't you know that you will kill me by setting me up like this? Don't you understand that love is sometimes very fragile? Of course, Grandpa didn't understand. At that time they must have been arranged by their parents. They didn't even know what their grandmother looked like before they entered the bridal chamber. The muscles on Fang Yan's face twitched. After swallowing a few mouthfuls of saliva, he looked at Yi Ro cautiously and asked, Grandpa, what did he say to you? Nothing much. Yi Ro's expression didn't show any sadness or joy. She said lightly, he just asked me if I like Lu Chaoga. Grandpa asked me if I like Lu Chaoga. I'm not familiar with Lu Chaoga. Why would he ask me this question? Of course, it's because you are familiar with her. Fang Yan, I just don't want to think about it, but I'm not stupid. Grandpa has already hinted so clearly, how can I not know what he means? I think the relationship between you two must be extraordinary, otherwise, you and Grandpa wouldn't be in such a difficult position. Yi Ro's expression became serious. She looked at Fang Yan with murderous eyes. Yes, it was indeed murderous. Yi Ro, who had entered the heavenly Tao realm, gave people a feeling of gentleness like water. Even the coldness from before had melted a lot. She looked like an ordinary woman. However, at this moment Yi Ro was filled with danger. It made people feel the biting cold aggression that could kill with a touch. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan and asked in a deep voice, Fang Yan, aren't you afraid that I'll be angry? Plop. Fang Yan's body retreated continuously, and his back leaned against the hard stone wall of someone's house. He looked at Yi Ro with a sad face and said, I'm ready. You can do whatever you want. Of course, I know this still won't solve any problem. So before you make any decision, can you listen to me first? I don't like to listen to nonsense. Yi Ro's tone was cold. I know. Fang Yan said in a deep voice. I love you. Chapter 803. I love you. For true lovers, these 3 words were worth a lot of gold. To a casual one-night stand couple, these 3 words were not much different from good morning, or, I want to take a dump. However, as for how to distinguish whether it was nonsense or not, that would depend on the benevolent and the wise. At that time the sword was only 0.01 centimeters away from my throat. But after the time for a quarter of an incense stick, the owner of the sword would fall in love with me completely because I decided to tell a lie. Although I have told countless lies in my life, I think this one is the most perfect. Oh, sorry, I got the wrong line. There was no sword, only the strong killing intent emanating from Yi Ro's body. Yi Ro stared at Fang Yan coldly as if she was staring at a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Should she kill him first and castrate him, or castrate him first and then kill him? This was a very illogical question. But how could a woman be logical? I love you, Fang Yan looked at Yi Rou and said. He thought his way of solving the problem was perfect, just like the way Joker answered Zixia Fairy in Journey to the West. A senior gambler once said that when a woman was angry, as long as she said the words, "I love you" to her, she would instantly lose her mind or IQ. Once a woman lost the ability to think, she could only be led by a man to move forward. However, Yi Rou was obviously not that kind of woman. Yi Rou looked at Fang Yan's face and said, "A move you often use? Do you think it will work on me?" "I know you are the most difficult person in this matter," Fang Yan said with a red face. It was not only because of embarrassment but also because of the timidity and guilt of facing Yi Rou. Things have happened and the result has been determined. But such a fact is pushed in front of you and you have to choose whether to accept or reject it. This is a great injustice to you. I'm not a victim. From a man's standpoint, I'm the one who benefits the most. I should be responsible for everything I've done. I was very nervous at the time, but I had to pretend to be calm in front of the other woman because it wasn't her fault. I said that I would bear all the sins and consequences. I want to say the same to you. If you are angry, you vent. If you hate, you fight. But you can't kill me yet because I still have important things to do. I have to live at least for a while. I have to protect my grandfather and my mother. I have to make sure that they are safe and that no harm will befall them. At that time I will be at your disposal. If you really did that, maybe I would feel better in my heart. You mean I can't do anything to you now? Not really. Why don't you scold me now? Fang Yan asked cautiously. Or you can beat me up. Fang Yan, I'm very angry. Yi Rou stared at Fang Yan and said. I know, Fang Yan said in a low voice. He slightly lowered his head, showing that he was admitting his guilt. You're sorry. Yi Rou's tone became even colder. Yes, I'm sorry. You have to compensate. Okay, I'll compensate. What? You have to marry me, Yi Rou said. Okay, I'll marry you. Fang Yan suddenly raised his head and looked at Yi Rou in surprise, asking, What did you just say? You have to marry me, Yi Rou said. You have to be responsible for me. I know, but Fang Yan's head felt like it had been rained on for a whole night. He was in a daze and couldn't find the right direction. Just a moment ago they were about to fight and kill each other. How did it turn into a romantic drama in the blink of an eye? The scene changed so fast that Fang Huohuo couldn't react. I'm your girlfriend, Yi Rou said. Yes, you always have been. I'm also your boyfriend. Our family knows about us. Everyone in Swallow Dock knows about us. Many people in Yanjing also know about us. Mrs. Li and Uncle Zhang in the village just saw us hugging. Yes, they saw. Fang Yan nodded his head like a chick pecking rice. What does this woman want to say? Why did it feel like she was different from before? If I encountered such a thing in the past, I would directly rush up and beat her up. She would beat me up happily and I would suffer happily. It was straightforward and efficient, without any sloppiness, nor would it make people feel uneasy and uneasy. What does she want to play? If you don't marry me, my reputation will be ruined, Yi Rou said. Ah. Accept or refuse? No, this matter. Accept or refuse. Aren't you angry? I've done something wrong to you, the heartless and ungrateful kind. Angry. So I asked you to marry me, accept or refuse. I accept. Good. Yi Rou nodded and said, Go back and prepare the betrothal gift. After that she turned around and walked back the way she came. Her back was soft and beautiful, and her two long legs were light and powerful as if she was stepping on the strings of a piano. Fang Yan was stunned on the spot and hadn't come to his senses until now. He knew that Yi Rou usually didn't talk much, but she had a very high IQ. Is it because she hates me so much that she wants to force me to marry her and then have a bunch of children and beat my children every day to get back at me? Thinking of this possibility, Fang Yan almost burst into tears. My children are so pitiful. These women are so scheming. Fang Yan walked back home in a daze. His grandfather, Fang Hui, was sitting in a chair and drinking tea. Seeing that Fang Yan had returned, he handed over the teacup in his hand and shouted, Boy, go and pour me another cup of tea. The pastries given by the little girl Wen Wan are delicious, but a little too sweet. I need to drink more water to get rid of the greasiness. Hey, why are you back so soon? He sized up his grandson's body and asked in puzzlement, You don't have any injuries? Didn't she break a leg or a few ribs or something? Fang Yan poured a cup of warm water and handed it over, shaking his head and saying, No. That's strange. It doesn't match that girl's character at all. Feng Hui's face was solemn. He looked at Feng Yan's face again and said, "Have you heard? That girl Yi Rou has entered the Heavenly Dao realm. She's the youngest Heavenly Dao realm expert in Swallow Dock. No, in the whole of Wuxia. I heard that the Yi family went to Sir and asked him to let Swallow Dock celebrate for 3 days. Sir agreed and engraved Yi Rou's name on a stone tablet at the village entrance. When was the last time a name was engraved on a stone tablet? It was when your eldest senior brother succeeded in ascending to the Heavenly Dao by underestimating his enemy. It's impossible to tell when a Heavenly Dao realm expert beats someone on the surface. I know you always suffer because you want to save face. If you're injured, quickly tell your family. Get someone to help you circulate your blood so that you can recover faster. Don't force yourself to bear with it." "She didn't hit me." Feng Yan shook his head once again. "Is that so?" Feng Hui's face looked a little regretful. "Then she scolded you. It's fine even if she scolds you a little. I know that lass Ro. She doesn't hold back when she hits you, but she can't say anything harsh. Scolding you a little is already letting you off lightly." Feng Hui suddenly thought of something as his body trembled. He said, "Don't tell me Ro wants to break up with you? Has it already come to this?" "No." Feng Yan looked at his grandfather with a grumpy look. "Can't this old man think of something better? You sold me out secretly and pretended that nothing had happened. I haven't even settled the score with you yet. Then what on earth is going on?" Feng Hui couldn't drink the warm water anymore. He stared at Feng Yan anxiously. "She asked me to take responsibility," said Feng Yan. "Huh? Take responsibility? How? Things have already happened. You can't do anything to Miss Zhaoga, can you?" "She asked me to marry her," said Feng Yan. "She said that everyone in the village knows about us. If I don't marry her, it will be bad for her reputation. I'm very worried now," said Feng Yan. "Worried about what?" "Worried that your great-grandson will be bullied by his mother," said Feng Yan. "She doesn't want to get back at me, so she wants to get back at my son. When my son is born, he won't have a good life. Isn't that right?" Smack. The old man Feng Hui smashed a sandalwood stick at Feng Yan's head and scolded, "Are you possessed, boy? Yi Rou wants to get back at you, so she forced you to marry her to give birth to a son for you, and then bully your son?" "I'm just worried." Feng Yan touched his head and said with a wronged expression, "Your son is not her son. If she bullies your son, isn't she bullying her own son?" "That's true. Besides, Yi Rou is a Heavenly Dao realm expert. Why would a Heavenly Dao realm expert want to take revenge on a fickle man? If I were Rou, I would have smacked you to death. Kid, tell me quickly. Did Rou really ask you to marry her? Did you hear something wrong? Did she say when? Shouldn't our Feng family prepare something? She asked me to go back and prepare a betrothal gift." "It's done." Feng Hui slapped his thigh and said, "I've already prepared the betrothal gift." Feng Hui said with an intoxicated look, "Yi Rou is a Heavenly Dao realm expert. She's the youngest Heavenly Dao realm expert. Although my grandson isn't very capable, my granddaughter-in-law is powerful. Let's see who dares to look down on our Feng family." Chapter 804. Children were always better than those from other families. Therefore there was a miraculous existence. Children from other families. For his good-for-nothing grandson to be able to marry the Heavenly Dao realm Yi Rou, it made Feng Hui overjoyed. "Feng Yan, our Feng family's feng shui is really good. It's extremely good. Think about it. In the past century, how many Heavenly Dao realm experts have appeared in Swallow Dock? 2 in total. There were only 2 of them. They were the one who underestimated the enemy 20 years ago and the one who became gentle 20 years later. Both of them were members of the Feng family and had a close relationship with the Feng family. Although our Feng family has only one descendant, every generation is an outstanding elite. Although outsiders think that each generation is worse than the last 20 years ago, due to Azure Dragon underestimating enemy's existence, our Feng family was not to be belittled. This time, if what you say is true and reliable and Yi Rou is really willing to marry you, willing to marry into our Feng family, then our Feng family will have another Heavenly Dao realm expert. When we return from underestimating our enemy, our Feng family will have 2 Heavenly Dao realm experts holding down the fort." Old man Feng's face flushed red as he danced in joy. He was so excited that he couldn't even speak properly. 2 Heavenly Dao realm experts. How powerful would that be? There are only a few heavenly Dao realm experts in all of Wuxia. At that time, even if you were an idiot, no one would dare belittle you, Grandpa. Fang Yan was very displeased with the old man's words. Why did he become an idiot? Although his current martial strength was a little weak, and his heart of Taiji had yet to fully recover, he couldn't be considered an idiot, right? He still had a mind that was good at scheming, and he had the intelligence to devise strategies. He also had a handsome face and an outstanding bearing. How could he be an idiot? Old man Fang Hui completely ignored Fang Yan's displeasure and continued expressing his joy. Do you know what it means for Yi Rou, who is at the heavenly Dao realm, to marry into our Fang family? It means that our Fang family will rise again. It means that no one will dare to bully our Fang family again. It means that your battle with the general family, that bunch of bastards, will have to consider if they can withstand the revenge of our Fang family's women. Grandpa, you shut up. Fang Hui shouted. Fortunately, he's gentle, affectionate, righteous, and broad-minded. He doesn't care about what you've done outside. Otherwise, wouldn't this great marriage be ruined by you? Do you know how much effort I've put into making this marriage happen? Do you know how they treated me the first time I went to challenge the Yi family? She didn't care about you at all. If I didn't ask Yi Rou to beat you every year and sometimes a few more times, how could you two have such a deep relationship? Can you get to where you are today and win the heart of a beauty? Behind every successful grandson, there must be a grandfather who silently contributes. Grandpa, go and call your mother over. Fang Hui waved his hand at Fang Yan and said, I have to discuss with her who to find as a matchmaker. I also have to ask Sir to help me find a good date to send the betrothal gifts. It would be best if he can calculate the date of the wedding. By the way, we also have to think of a good matchmaker. The Yi family is not an ordinary family now. The matchmaker must have some weight. Why are you still standing there? Go quickly. Grandpa, you have a granddaughter-in-law and you have forgotten your grandson. Besides, you haven't married your granddaughter-in-law yet. Only then did Fang Hui take a serious look at Fang Yan. He chuckled and said, I've told Wen Raowen that if you make that kind of emotional mistake again, she doesn't need to do anything. I'll punish you according to the family rules. Fang Yan went to call his mother Lu Wan. Lu Wan was very happy to hear that Yi Rou agreed to marry him. As she did say so. Then she began to discuss with Fang Hui about who to find as a matchmaker, what betrothal gifts to send, and when to set the date of the engagement and the wedding. Fang Yan stood there for a long time and found that he was completely invisible. He was a little confused. Wasn't he the one who was going to get married? Why didn't anyone ask for his opinion? I might go back on my word, Fang Yan thought to himself. Soon he shook his head and gave up the idea. I'm just being reserved. If I can marry Yi Rou, I'm willing to be beaten by her every day. Winter hadn't come yet and the first snowflake was still far away. But Mr. Fang had already put on a thick gray robe, as if he couldn't stand the early cold in the hollow of Swallow Dock. Mr. Fang carried a dung basket on his back and a dung bag in his hand. He casually picked up the dung from the animals at the foot of the road while talking to Fang Yan. Rou is still ahead of you. There was a comfortable smile on Mr. Fang's face, which was a compliment to the outstanding achievements of the younger generation of Swallow Dock. People used to say that Yi Rou was a rare martial arts prodigy in Swallow Fort. That's right, but it's also wrong. Seeking for martial arts is a mysterious thing. Some people take the first 99 steps but they get stuck at the last step and it's hard for them to take the last step in their lifetime. Some people fall behind by 99 steps, but the latecomers catch up as if they took the 100 steps in one night. At that time, there were 4 people in Swallow Dock who stood on the same level. Yi Rou, Bailey Lu and Bai Xiu. I'm not praising Bai Xiu because he is my apprentice, but because he really has the talent in this area and can give people enough expectations. And you can't deny that he worked harder than the 3 of you. Fang Yan nodded and said, I don't deny that. Bai Xiu worked harder than us. He wasn't a member of Swallow Dock and he couldn't integrate with us. Because he came from the outside and because he was too outstanding or too hardworking, we all ostracized him whether intentionally or unintentionally. Perhaps this was also the cause of everyone's deep resentment. At that time we were indeed too young and impetuous and did a lot of things wrong. What choice did we have at that time? Mr. Fang shook his head and sighed. It's natural for young people to fight and quarrel. Even ordinary young children will quarrel for years and not speak. What's more, this is Swallow Dock. If you're not convinced, I won't admit defeat. Isn't that a very normal thing? It's still the mentality. If the mentality is crooked, the steps will also be crooked. Swallow Doc can't tolerate him. Mr. Fong picked up a pile of dried cow dung on the ground and carried the dung basket forward. But now only Yiro has stepped onto the Heavenly Dao, becoming the youngest Heavenly Dao realm expert in Swallow Doc. So she's ahead of all of you. This is a great thing for Swallow Doc. How many years has it been since Swallow Doc had a Heavenly Dao realm expert? It wasn't easy for us to have someone like Imo Qingdi, but in the end we encountered such a thing. So when Dawen came to me to ask Swallow Doc to celebrate this matter for 3 days, I agreed immediately. With such a thing happening, I'd be happy even if it's a 30-day celebration. Fong Yan nodded and said, "It's indeed something to be proud of. Gently stepping onto the Heavenly Dao is very beneficial to us. Bailey Lu has been like a madman for the past few days, trying to find a way to break out of the cage. Such matters can't be rushed. It comes naturally and goes with the heart," Mr. Fong said with a smile. "So, are you ready to marry Ting Wan?" "That's the case," Fong Yan said with a nod. Then he looked up at Mr. Fong and asked, "Does Mr. Fong already know?" "I knew a long time ago," Mr. Fong said. Fong Yan smiled and said, "I've troubled everyone regarding Gentle and me." "It is indeed troublesome," Mr. Fong said with a nod. "Before you came back when Wan came to see me." "Oh?" Fong Yan looked at Mr. Fong with a puzzled gaze and asked, "What did Gentle look for you for?" "She said she wanted to marry you," Mr. Fong said. "Back then why did she look for you to say this?" "You should know what Gentle's ascension to the Heavenly Dao means to the Yi family, right?" "I know." Fong Yan nodded. "The Yi family's reputation is rising again. No one can stop it." "That's right," Mr. Fong said with a smile. "The Yi family's development these years has been too smooth and too rapid. Not only is it unstoppable in Swallow Doc, but it has also formed its own faction in the outside world and become a behemoth. The 3 tigers of the Yi family have outstanding abilities, but they are low-key and introverted. It must be easy for you to overlook Yi Daoling's influence in the political world and Yi Daoshuan's power in the military, right?" Fong Yan's mind turned and he looked at Mr. Fong and said, "Gentle is worried." On the one hand, Gentle is a little worried. Although the men of the Yi family look like mountains and rivers on the surface, they are extremely tough in their bones, proud and awe-inspiring and not easily subdued. The development of the Yi family is naturally a good thing for the Yi family. But blessings and misfortunes go hand in hand. Who can be sure that this is not a bad thing? Gentle wants to put a break on the Yi family, so she has to leave the Yi family. The best way to leave the Yi family is to marry into your Fong family. Mr. Fong looked at Fong Yan and said, "The Fong family used to be glorious, especially during the period of don't underestimate the enemy. They even walked to the peak of glory. Unfortunately, underestimate the enemy fell due to injuries and the Fong family once again fell to the low level. These years the Fong family's luck has not been good. Yi Xing died in battle and your heart of Tai Chi is also fluctuating and uncertain. So at this time Yi Gentle marrying into your Fong family is the best of both worlds." Mr. Fong Yan's face was burning with pain. He said, "You mean, I'm a burden?" "You can't say that," Mr. Fong said as he strode forward with the manure basket. "It's just luck. You don't have too much psychological pressure. Gentle is a good child. Even if she enters the Fong family's door, I'm sure she won't treat you too badly." Chapter 805. Fong Yan had always felt that he was the youngest, most handsome and fair-skinned successor of the Fong Tai Chi. Why did others feel that he was pitiful and deserving of sympathy? He could be Fong Yan, the Fong Yan who fought against the Qinya military department, the Fong Yan who killed the father and son of the Jiang family, the Fong Yan who forced Jiang Junling to be expelled from the family, the Fong Yan who killed the Tao addict Song Zaniang, one of the 7 addicts of Wuxia, the Fong Yan of Tiger Sawflower City, and the Fong Yan who fought against the Jiang family head-on. As an adult who had just come of age, achieving such achievements could be described as blinding the eyes of others. Why was it that when it came out of everyone's mouths, they all seemed to despise it? Could it be that there was a man more outstanding than him in this world? Impossible. Fong Yan swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, then looked at the teacher and said, "Sir, I think you have some misunderstandings about me, Walala." The teacher poured the feces in the basket into the manure pond in the backyard, then placed the basket in the corner of the wall. He rubbed his hands and pushed open the small wooden door. He washed his hands by the well in the yard, then took a black towel and wiped his face. Only then did he look at Fang Yan and ask, "What misunderstanding?" "I think I'm quite powerful too," Fang Yan said. The teacher grinned and asked, "How are you powerful?" "The Jiang family has always wanted to kill me, but they haven't been able to until now, so I'm very powerful." "How many of the people the Jiang family wants to deal with are still alive and well?" Fang Yan said with a serious expression. "Moreover, I might not lose. Have you ever thought that the Jiang family might lose this time? If the Jiang family loses, what will the result be? How will other people look at this matter? What kind of expression will they use to look at me?" The teacher rubbed his wrinkled old face and nodded. "What you said is not impossible. I think you won't lose." Fang Yan was overjoyed and asked, "Do you think I will win?" "It's also hard to win," the teacher said. "You're in a dilemma now." Fang Yan began to dislike Sir. He had changed. He had become very strange, almost like his two masters. If you have something to say, can't you just say it all at once? Why did they have to make it so complicated? The man didn't care about Fang Yan's disdainful look. He pushed open the door and walked in. He sat down on his old rattan chair as if his body was exhausted. He waved at Fang Yan and said, "Go pour me a cup of tea." Fang Yan responded. He saw a big teapot on the table and poured a big bowl of herbal tea from the teapot and handed it over. The teacher didn't take it and shouted angrily, "You brat, you're too insensible. I'm already so old and it's such a cold day and you're giving me this kind of herbal tea. Aren't you afraid of freezing my body? If your grandfather asked you to pour tea, would you pour this kind of herbal tea for him?" Fang Yan's face was full of grievance. He knew that with Sir's martial arts cultivation, not to mention drinking a bowl of cold water, even if he was soaked in ice water 24 hours a day, it wouldn't freeze his body. This old man was so unreasonable. However, thinking of Sir's martial arts cultivation, Fang Yan didn't dare to offend him. So he quickly ran over and added half a bowl of hot water into the tea bowl. Only then did Sir take a big gulp. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Sit." Fang Yan sat in front of Sir and said, "Sir, I'm from Swallow Dock. I've been bullied outside. You have to help me." Sir held the tea bowl and looked at Fang Yan asking, "You want to borrow power?" "I want to borrow a knife." Fang Yan said, "If the young and old of Swallow Dock unite, even 10 families of generals won't be enough for us to kill. We can kill our way to the general's old mansion in minutes. You and that old man Jiang Shifu are old friends, so I'll leave him to you. Although your martial arts are good, you have to be careful of him using a spear. I think people at his age can do anything shameless. And then the generals will disappear. We'll return to Swallow Dock and continue to live and work in peace." Fang Yan said with a smile, "I can't promise you. You know I won't promise you. You're pushing Swallow Dock into a pit of fire. If Swallow Dock really did something like that, would it still be Swallow Dock? Would anyone still tolerate our existence and give us these privileges? I'm just saying." Fang Yan rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. "I just feel so suffocated. Others are already bullying us, but we can't do anything. We can only passively take a beating. This isn't our style. If those heroes who sacrificed themselves knew that their descendants were in such dire straits, do you think they'd be so angry that they'd come back to life and fight the generals? If the generals were really unscrupulous, they wouldn't have only shown this little bit of power. Haven't you noticed? They've always been doing things within the rules. Whether it's touching Du Qing or suppressing the businesses of Chao Yan and your partners, they're all tactics that can be used in business competition. This is also why we can't stand out and say anything. Could it be that just because you came from Swallow Fort that others couldn't snatch or touch your business? Or maybe it's because the generals have deep connections behind them that no one can compete with them head-on. This is obviously unreasonable. But it's immoral for them to kidnap people." Fang Yan said angrily. Master glanced at Fang Yan and said, "You killed the Tao addict Song Zhaniang. Will the generals jump out and reason with you?" So, no one is actually willing to reason with us now. No. On the surface, everyone is reasonable. On the surface, they're not reasonable. In private, there are many things that can't be done. "Master, you're not willing to come out. Why do you need to come out?" Master smiled. "If you sit here and don't move, the people behind the generals can't move either. If you move first, they'll follow suit." "That's true." Fang Yan sighed. Fang Yan's hands and feet were tied. The generals also couldn't use more of their power. If he didn't have an existence like Swallow Dock behind him, they could probably do a lot of things to make him disappear into thin air. Now that he had to act economically, he had to admit that they must be very uncomfortable. "You're right about one thing," Master said. "Which one?" "You said you're very powerful," Master said. Fang Yan grinned and said, "Master, do you really think so? Do you know why I don't think you'll lose? Because I can't see through you." Master finished half of the tea in his bowl, then handed the empty bowl to Fang Yan and said, "I've seen through so many people, but there are only two I can't see through. One is Bai Xiu and the other is you. Master Zhang has a bad eye for people. I told you a long time ago that Bai Xiu wasn't a good person, but you didn't believe me. Now do you know why I kept my distance from him?" "That's true," Master smiled bitterly. "But I can see that you have a drive in your bones. This drive is very terrifying. It can make you do anything. Even if you suddenly defeated the generals tonight, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Because I don't know what you can do. I can't even guess what you're planning. To get to where you are now, isn't it because of this drive?" "I'm currently taking a beating," Fang Yan said. "The situation in Flower City isn't very optimistic. I'm planning to return tomorrow after seeing you." "What kind of logic is that, leaving your friends behind? The men of Swallow Dock can't do such a thing." Master looked at Fang Yan and said, "You won't go back." "Why do you say that, Master?" "Because you didn't get anything." "What? You didn't get anything from this trip back to Yanjing," Master said. "That's not your style." "What do you mean, Master?" "You came to Yanjing at the most critical moment in Flower City, which means you must have some plans in Yanjing. If you didn't get anything, why would you leave Flower City at this time?" "Didn't I say that I came to Yanjing to get reinforcements?" Fang Yan spread his hands and shrugged helplessly, saying, "I just didn't get any reinforcements." "If you didn't come to Yanjing, wouldn't you know the final result of this trip? Whether the Qin family will make a move, whether Qin Etian will make a move, couldn't you have calculated all of this?" Master looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully and said, "Fang Yan, what do you want to do?" Fang Yan looked at Master for a long while, then got up and bowed to Master, saying, "Thank you for your advice, Master. I know what to do." With that, he turned and walked out of the door of the small house. "Fang Yan," Master called out. Fang Yan turned to look at Fang Yan and asked, "Master? I've already announced the news of Wenwuru successfully climbing to the Heavenly Tao realm. Swallow Dock will celebrate for 3 days. I've also spread the news of you and Wenwuru getting married, and the day of the wedding has been chosen. It'll be on the 8th of the 12th lunar month. It'll be appropriate for you to get married." Fang Yan stood in the yard and bowed to Master again, saying, "Thank you, Master." Master waved his hand and said, "Go do what you need to do. You can lose, but you have to come back alive. If you're alive, there's hope. If you're dead, you're just a handful of dirt." Fang Yan smiled and said, "Don't worry, Master. I definitely won't lose." Chapter 806. Qin Chong was very busy these 2 days. He was busy contacting the direct descendants of the Qin family to form an anti-feminist alliance, helping each other and working hand in hand. Those who were strong would contribute, and those who were weak would fool their parents to contribute. No matter what, he had to overthrow the 2 mountains that were riding on the heads of the Qin family's males. Qin Chong was very busy, and it was worth it. He found that almost all the young men of the Qin family were not satisfied with Li Xinyan and Qin Etian taking over the power of the Qin family. They were all dignified 7-foot men. They had manners and were capable. How could they live with such a small amount of dividends every month? A real man should take over the power of the Qin family. No matter what, they had to drive the mother and daughter away this time. As for who would take over the power of the Qin family, it was not up to him as a junior to decide. However, he personally thought that his 4th uncle was very qualified. He was his father's brother, and he had doted on him since he was a child. If 4th uncle were to take over, she would become the Qin Etian she was now. Just thinking about it made her feel a little excited. Mansion number 1. In order to avoid being noticed, Qin Chong had arranged for everyone to gather there. The other brothers were running around outside, while he stayed in the center to collect information and control it. "Qin Guan, how is your contact?" Qin Chong asked when he saw Qin Guan striding into the room. Qin Guan asked the servant to bring him a cup of Longjing tea. Then he answered Qin Chong's question. "My father, my mother, and my uncle have made a decision. They said that some things should be considered carefully. The Qin clan had a lot of men and the children were all capable. How could they be allowed to idle around all day and do nothing? They have to find opportunities to gain experience, don't they? Qin Chong was overjoyed. He said with a smile, "Your father and your uncle are willing to stand up for us. Our chance of success has increased by 10%. I'd like to see how they will talk this time." "I'm afraid that the elders in the family," Qin Guan reminded him. "Do you think the elders in the family are willing to side with the mother and daughter? Wasn't it for the stability and unity of the Qin family? If they see that the people of the Qin family have changed their minds and everyone wants to kick them out of power, I'm sure at that time they will go with the flow and agree to our request." Qin Chong excitedly analyzed the situation and said, "Besides, don't your grandpa and my grandpa want their children to go there? Now that the opportunity has come, isn't it natural for them to give it a push?" Qin Guan nodded repeatedly and said, "Big brother, it seems that we can succeed this time." Of course. Qin Chong's expression was incomparably firm. "This is not only our thoughts but also the thoughts of all the uncles in the family. Think about it, 2 women forcefully oppressing 2 generations of men in the Qin family. Who would feel good? Their current situation is our future. What we have to go through in the future they have endured for many years. This is a war of justice. Anyway, I'll follow you." Qin Guan smiled and said, "Brother, your wedding date is approaching, right?" Qin Chong patted his head and said with annoyance, "Look at me, I almost forgot something important. We agreed to try on wedding dresses today but I was so busy that I forgot it." Qin Guan was also anxious and said, "Big brother, this kind of thing can't be delayed. Hurry up and get busy. Leave the rest to us." Qin Chong patted Qin Guan's shoulder and said, "Let's keep in touch." After saying that, he got up and walked outside. When he walked downstairs, the driver was already waiting at the gate of the number 1 mansion. "Go to the Imperial Court," Qin Chong said. The driver nodded and drove the car to the Imperial Court. The Imperial Court was the most famous wedding photography shop in Yanjing and even the whole country. It was famous for providing personalized, customized services. Besides, it was only open to the public on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. The rest of the time it was closed and only served some special guests. Sometimes the entire Imperial Court would only decide on a plan for a couple. When Qin Chong rushed over, Li Junling had already arrived. Li Junling was in the midst of choosing a wedding dress with the beautiful boss of the Imperial Court, Qin Mengyao, as well as the head designer Mu Bai and the others. When he saw Qin Chong enter, he only glanced at him indifferently and smiled. "I thought you forgot." "How come?" Qin Chong walked quickly to Li Junling and said, "I've been thinking about it. It's just that I didn't finish some things at hand so I came a little late." "Junling, don't mind it." Li Junling shook his head and said, "Why would I? Men have their own things to do. If I mind it, how can we live together in the future?" Mr. Qin is gentle and considerate, and Miss Li is beautiful and generous. What an enviable couple. The beautiful boss of the Imperial Court, Qin Mengyao, complimented them. Qin Chong nodded at her and said, "Any man who can spend a lifetime with a woman like Junling will take care of her in every possible way." "I'm far from doing enough." Li Junling held Qin Chong's hand and leaned into his embrace and said, "I believe you. We will definitely be happy in the future. Do you think this dreamy princess dress that I chose looks good?" Qin Chong looked at the blue princess dress that was made from fairy tales and nodded. "Junling is a princess. You will definitely look good in this wedding dress. You will be the most beautiful bride in the world. There are a few more in front. I think that angel white dress is also very good. Let's go take a look." "Miss Junling, if you like it you can try it on," Qin Mengyao encouraged. "Can I?" Li Junling asked with a smile. "Of course," Qin Mengyao nodded. Li Junling looked at Qin Chong and said, "Do you feel bored?" "Why would I?" Qin Chong had a doting expression. "To me, nothing is more important than what we are doing today." "Then let's try it," Li Junling said. The chief designer Mu Bai gave the order. A group of wedding dress store employees behind him immediately got busy. Li Junling went into the inner room to try on the wedding dress, while Qin Mengyao invited Qin Chong to the rest area for tea. Because she knew Qin Chong's identity, Qin Mengyao tried her best to please him. She personally brewed a cup of tea for him and said with a smile, "Young Master Qin, you have to invite me to your wedding. Let's go and bask in the happiness." Qin Chong was in a good mood that day. He immediately agreed to Qin Mingyao's request. He said to the bodyguard standing beside him, "Ming, remember this. You will personally deliver the invitation to Miss Qin." The bodyguard bowed in agreement, indicating that he would keep this matter in mind. At that moment, Qin Chong's phone rang in his pocket. He took out his cell phone and saw that it was Qin Guan's number. Qin Chong answered the phone and said with a smile, "Qin Guan, you are doing this on purpose, aren't you? You know that I have something important to do today, but you just had to call me at this time." "Brother, something happened." Qin Guan sounded a little impatient. "What happened?" Qin Chong tensed up. What could happen? Could it be that the two women found out about their secret contact? So what if they knew? Anyway, they had already contacted them, and it was obvious that they wanted to force them to step down. Or would the elders of the family stand up and stop them? That would be bad. At that time, should he continue or stop? "Brother, that," Qin Guan stammered on the other side of the phone. Qin Guan was angry and said, "Qin Guan, it's not a big deal. Things have been pushed to this point. Even if the two women know, what can they do? Don't tell me you don't have the courage to confront them after they shout at you? Look at you, don't you look like a man?" "Brother, it's not about that. If not this, then what is it? It's about you. What's wrong with me?" Qin Guan was even more curious. Could it be that some kind of fire was burning him? Qin Guan sneered in his heart. It seemed that they had realized his importance and knew that he was the one behind it. If they wanted to shoot the bird that stood out, they had to find a way to kill him first. However, he had already established his power. They could not let him succeed with just a few words. Benefits, they had to give him enough benefits. Soon they would come to his door and negotiate with him, wouldn't they? At that time he would open his mouth like a lion and bite off a big piece of fat from them. "Sister-in-law, Li Junling, is she with you? Call her sister-in-law. She will be your sister-in-law from now on. Why are you asking about her?" "Brother, didn't you see that video?" "Video? What video?" "You'd better watch it," Qin Guan said anxiously. "Tell me, what video?" Qin Guan was a little angry. This guy could not do anything right. He could not even say a complete sentence. How could he achieve anything great? No wonder the power of the Qin family had been controlled by the two women for so long. The main reason was that these guys were useless. "I'll send it to you." Then Qin Guan hung up the phone. Ding! Qin Chong received a message on his mobile phone. He opened it and saw a recorded video. He could clearly see his fiancée, Li Junling, with a man. After watching the video, Qin Chong was short of breath and his face was red. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and he looked like he was suffering from a serious illness. "General," Qin Chong roared sadly. Chapter 807. Qin Etian reclined on the sofa, polishing her slender nails with scissors while watching the Nasdaq stock chart on the big TV screen in the room. For Qin Etian, paying attention to the stocks of several markets every day was as important as watching the news every night to see the political trend. Muing pushed open the office door and walked in. Ignoring the bad posture of this noble and elegant young lady, who looked like a peacock with its tail open 24 hours a day, he said in a clear voice, "Miss, it's very noisy outside." "How so?" Qin Etian asked without raising her head. She had just finished repairing the 5 fingers of her left hand, and there were still 5 fingers on the right that had not been repaired. Women had a lot of things to deal with every day, and every one of them seemed to be extremely important. She couldn't be careless at all. The other families have united a lot of people saying that they want to force the elders in the family to abdicate. They think that Madam and Miss are a little powerless to control such a big family business. They think that as the men of the Qin family, they should stand up and share some obligations and responsibilities. Anyway, that's what they said. Share obligations and responsibilities. A sneer appeared on Qin Etian's lips, but it was fleeting. It seemed that in her heart, looking down on them was looking up to them. The family releases more than a dozen entrepreneurial projects every year. Why don't they have the guts to take them? Occasionally there are a few cases. How about the performance? Are there any profits or hopes of making profits in the future? Did they really not know what they were made of? Jumping out at this time to make trouble, it's really idiot. Qin Etian's sexy mouth jumped out 2 gentle words. Miss. Muing knew that the young lady he served was arrogant and didn't care about ordinary people at all. He had to persuade her. Do you want to remind Madam? Madam has been too busy recently. I'm afraid that she hasn't noticed what's going on here. After all, it seems that it's just a few children playing, but in fact there are adults and elders behind them. If Madame doesn't guard against them at all, I'm afraid that they will bite her when the time comes. Qin Etian glanced at Mu Ying and said, Mu Ying, you are becoming more and more meticulous. Mu Ying acted as if he had done something wrong. He didn't dare to look straight into Qin Etian's eyes and said embarrassedly, Miss, am I worried for nothing? It's not superfluous. Qin Etian lowered his head to trim his nails again. At least I know your sincerity. Do you know why idiots can never accomplish something? Qin Etian asked. Mu Ying shook his head and said, maybe he's too stupid? It's one thing to be stupid, but your partners are also stupid. This is more sad. They collude with each other, and the people they colluded with run out to leak information to claim credit. How can such a group of people succeed? I was worrying too much, Mu Ying said with a smile. I didn't expect them to be so stupid. I talked to Mother about this. She said to let them play, she's busy. Qin Etian looked up at the latest stock index and pointed to two stocks, saying, buy 97002 and 16321. Buy as much as you have. The confidential secretary heard this and immediately passed on this order. Qin Etian focused on trimming his nails again and said, is there any news about Fong Yen? Mr. Fong went back to Swallow Dock. Mu Ying said with a smile. Before this, Master Xia of the Xia family met him. It was Xianxia who introduced him to Yi Daoling. Yi Daoling also invited him to breakfast, back to Swallow Dock. Qin Etian stopped cutting her nail clippers. She's at Swallow Dock too, she said thoughtfully. Mu Ying immediately understood Mrs. Worry and said with a smile, Miss, do you want to go out and relax? What's the point of fighting? Qin Etian shook his head. If I go there now, I'll just throw my modesty on the ground and let others step on it again. If I can succeed, I don't care about this. But there's no hope. There's no hope at all. I can see that Mr. Fong has feelings for Mississippi. So what? Qin Etian asked. He said it's a teacher-student relationship. Obviously not. Since he said so, I can only believe him. Qin Etian smiled bitterly. Who asked me to be one step later than her? It was like a beautiful flower had lost its moisture in an instant. At this moment Qin Etian was still extremely beautiful, but she had lost the aura that she exuded from her bones. Mu Ying thought for a while and said, Miss, you are not someone who gives up easily. Is that so? Qin Etian thought about it and said, indeed. If I want something, I will definitely get it. Then Fong Yen. He is an exception. Qin Etian shook his head. My feelings for him are like a needle piercing into his flesh. The harder I try, the more pain he will feel. Since that's the case, why don't I make it easier for him? Qin Etian waved his hand and said, get out, I don't want to talk anymore. Mu Ying and Qin Etian's confidential secretary left together, leaving only Qin Etian in the spacious office. Qin Etian threw the nail clipper into the box and lay down on the soft leather sofa. His black pupils looked at the boundless sky through the transparent glass. He sighed deeply and muttered to himself, she's here too. Pornographic videos spread faster than viruses. The former tried to seduce you, while the latter made you impatiently fly into the fire like a moth to a flame. At first it spread in a small circle in Yanjing. Soon it spread to a larger and larger area. Finally, it was out of control and spread to a wider range of people. Although the major media and chat software blocked and deleted the video immediately, some things had been deeply hidden in people's minds. No matter what antivirus software you used, you couldn't find it. Li Junling, that bitch, looks so cold on the surface. I didn't expect that she could do such a thing in the dark. The Queen of Piano's figure looks good. Let's bet. Qin Chong versus General Hang. Who do you bet on to win? There was a lot of discussion and sarcasm. The world was full of different forms. Everyone knew that a storm was about to come. However, the two parties involved maintained an unusual silence on this matter. No, it was the three parties involved. Whether it was Li Junling, Qin Chong, or General Hang who intervened in their relationship, none of them expressed any opinion on this matter. Even after the video was released, the three never appeared in public again. During the turbulent times in Yanjing, Fong Yen was dragged by his grandfather Fong Hui to the Yi family to propose marriage. The matchmaker that Fong Yen hired was Mr. He was considered the most respected person in Swallow Dock. so it wasn't considered a disgrace to the Yi family. When Mr. came, the Yi family's patriarch also came out to accompany him. Mr. looked at Yi Daowen, Yi Daoling, and the three Yi brothers who had yet to leave and said with a smile, Zhou Xian has lived in the village for a short period of time. He has been busy with the military, so there are many things that he isn't very clear about. Daowen has been living in the village for a long time, and Daoling has come back from time to visit. The two of you should be familiar with this child, Fang Yan. Can be said that we watched him grow up. It's easy for Swallow Doc to produce talents. Let's not talk about the past. Your Yi family's three tigers, which one of them isn't awe-inspiring outside? There's also Mo Qingdi, who stepped into the heavenly Dao realm. Although he suffered this calamity because of his carelessness, it's not impossible for him to recover. If he were to really find the ice dragon's tendon to mend his remnant meridians, wouldn't he still be a heavenly Dao realm expert of our Swallow Doc? In the entire world, how many people are capable of fighting against him? There's no need to mention Wen Wan. She's a rare martial arts prodigy of our Swallow Doc. She succeeded in reaching the heavenly Dao realm at a young age, and is the youngest heavenly Dao realm expert of our Swallow Doc in all of Wuxia. Yesterday, Daowen came to me and said that he wanted to hold a celebration for 3 days. I wouldn't even agree to it for 3 months, much less 3 days. Wen Wan is a good child. Fang Yan is also a good child. And what's even rarer is that the two of them know each other well and have feelings for each other. Yesterday when I went out to pick up feces, old man Li, who lives in the east, even joked with me that he saw the Fang family's kid and the Yi family's lass walk past his door. He said that he had to come over and have a drink when the two of them set up a feast. The villagers are also looking forward to attending their wedding feast. Sir's gaze landed on Yi Daowen's face as he said with a smile, Daowen, you are Wen Wan's father. Logically speaking, this matter should require your approval. Now that the Fang family has sent the betrothal gifts over, it's now your turn to discuss it. He used his finger in his sleeve to point at the mountain of betrothal gifts inside and outside the house and asked, Are you going to accept these betrothal gifts or not? Are you going to nod or shake your head? Say it in front of everyone. Yi Daowen's expression was gloomy as he stared intently at Fang Yan. This left Fang Yan depressed as he thought to himself, It's useless even if you stare at me. I still haven't fully figured out the situation. Yin Wan sat beside Patriarch and saw her father remain silent. The other two uncles didn't seem to have any intention to speak either. Yin Wan glanced at Patriarch and said with a clear and firm voice, I've accepted the betrothal gifts. I agree to the marriage. Chapter 808. I accept the betrothal gift and I agree to the marriage. While the Yi family remained silent, Yi Ro agreed to Fang Yan's proposal. She was in charge of everything. Ro, you can't do this, Yi Daowen hurriedly stopped her. Even though he knew his objection wouldn't have much effect. But when he thought that the daughter he raised was about to be tricked away by a bastard to become another man's wife, he felt a deep anger in his heart. That bastard, how could he cheat his precious daughter away? Yes, Ro, marriage is not a game. We know your relationship with Fang Yan, but this matter, shouldn't you think it over? Yi Daoling's objection was very tactful. He only said think it over, but he didn't reject it outright. He saw Yi Ro's determination. If he forcefully opposed it, it would only incite the conflict between the Yi family and Yi Ro, forcing her to make an even more extreme choice. It was better to make some space for both sides to calm down. Maybe something bad would happen while they were thinking and then Yi Ro wouldn't like Fang Yan anymore? What if it was like this? Ro, I think your father and second uncle are both reasonable. Yi Daoxian was serious in speech and manner and he always had a straight face when persuading people. He said aloud, You and Fang Yan have known each other for many years, but you've only been in love for a few days. In such a short time, are you sure you've truly understood this man? Is he also able to completely understand you? Moreover, marriage is different from love. After marriage, you have to live together day by day, year by year. Everyone's strengths and weaknesses will be magnified infinitely. Some subtle things that are originally overlooked by others after accumulating for a long time may very well become some explosive points of conflict between two parties. Fang Yan's excellence is undeniable, and it is also a matter worthy of blessing and gratification that the two of you can be together. However, we only hope that you can be more cautious and be more responsible for your marriage. Wait a while, see if the two of you are suitable for each other, Think if you have the courage to tolerate all of each other's weaknesses, and walk together through thick and thin. Ro, what do you think? Yi Daoxuan's words were reasonable and there was no way to refute them. Even Fang Yan thought what he said made sense. Marriage was not a child's play. Yi Ro should think about it carefully. I have so many problems. What if Yi Ro can't take it anymore and wants to divorce me? If he didn't agree, what if she hit him? She was a heavenly Dao realm expert and he wasn't her match. Wouldn't this be the result of her domestic abuse every day? Besides, Fang Yan had a guilty conscience. Although he had confessed his relationship with Lu Chaoga to Yi Ro didn't give him any instructions. What was she thinking in her heart? Would he mind my relationship with Lu Chaoga? In other words, she would break both her legs and lock herself at home. There were many problems that needed to be carefully considered. We can't wait. Yi Ro glanced at Fang Yan and said, what if someone else takes it away? The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became extremely strange. Everyone looked at Yi Ro with a dull expression. The woman who said this, was she really the arrogant and cold iceberg Yi Ro who never looked anyone in the eye? Even Fang Yan himself widened his eyes. This was obviously not Yi Ro's style. Was she possessed by Qin Yitian? The gentleman coughed violently. It was unknown whether it was because of a physical illness or a physiological reaction. He coughed so hard that it looked like he was going to cough out his internal organs. The young people's style changed too quickly. As an old man, he couldn't keep up. Old man Feng Hui was stunned at first, then a strong smile appeared on his face. He looked at Yi Ro with joy as if he liked her more and more. The old man was also happy. All the teeth in his mouth fell off. He reached out and patted Yi Ro, who was sitting next to him, but he couldn't say a word. The three Yi brothers were the most embarrassed at the scene. They didn't expect Yi Ro to say such a thing. First they were extremely shocked, then their faces turned purplish red. Yi Daowen looked at his daughter with disappointment and said, Ro, you are a girl. How can you say such a thing? If he is really snatched away, it's better not to have such a man. Ro, your thoughts are wrong. Yi Daoling coughed twice as well as if he had been infected by the gentleman. You are beautiful and smart. Furthermore, you are the youngest heavenly Dao realm expert in all of Wuxia. You are the only girl like you in all of Wuxia. As long as you are willing, you can find the best man. What kind of man can't you find? Women need to be strong and brave, but they also need to have an independent personality. You must not lose yourself. That will be an obstacle to your path of seeking the Dao. Yi Daoxian no longer wished to speak to this junior of his. He felt that Yi Ro had been brainwashed. When had Yi Ro ever spoken to someone like this in the past? They hadn't met for a period of time. How did she become like this? At this moment, Fang Yan had no choice but to step forward and say something. After all, be it Sir or his grandfather, the reason why they were here was to help him marry Yi Ro. Fang Yan smiled at Yi Daowen's ferocious gaze and said, Uncle, I understand how you feel. The daughter you have raised for more than 20 years is suddenly going to become another man's wife. You must be very disappointed and find it hard to accept. The reason why you feel this way is because you are a good father. You love your daughter with all your heart. Yi Daowen's expression softened a little, but on second thought, I obviously love my daughter with all my heart. The three Yi brothers looked at each other, their mouths full of bitterness. A grown girl couldn't be kept at home. The patriarch glanced at Yi Daowen, Yi Daoling and Yi Daoxian and said, why don't we just leave it at that? Yi Daoling and Yi Daoxian didn't say a word as they turned to look at their elder brother, Yi Daowen. They thought to themselves, Yi Ro is your daughter, so as her father, you have the most say. Although your say has almost been taken away by your daughter, it's even more unjustifiable for us to speak. Yi Daowen understood what his two brothers meant, but there was nothing he could do about this matter. He ignored his two brothers' expectant gazes and said to the patriarch, since the patriarch thinks it's good, then, let's do it at that. It's settled, Sir said with a laugh. The 8th of the 12th lunar month, an auspicious day. Both of you should prepare yourselves. Chapter 809. After returning home, old Master Feng Hui shouted for Fang Yan to pour tea for him. Tea, pour me a cup of tea. The old man's face was full of excitement and he said to Fang Yan in a very boastful tone, I've dug countless traps in my life, but this is the most exciting one, and also the one that earned me the most. I lost a grandson and got a granddaughter-in-law back. Fang Yen poured the tea in the teapot into a cup and added half a cup of hot water to the cup. Then he handed the cup to the old man and said, "My marriage with Wen Wan was also a trap set by you? Isn't that obvious?" The old man said bluntly, "If I hadn't shamelessly gone to the Yi family to challenge them, you wouldn't be here now. Wen Wan is a heavenly Dao realm expert. After the news is spread, wouldn't the Yi family break the door to propose marriage? Besides, even if Wen Wan wasn't a heavenly Dao realm expert, there were still a lot of people who went to the Yi family to propose marriage. Why did Wen Wan have a higher opinion of you and get closer to you? Isn't it because of those years of fighting? Wen Wan has bullied many people in Swallow Dock all these years. By Xiao Zhu Zaidan Li Shaoan Bailey Lu, which one of them hasn't been beaten by Wen Wan? Why didn't Wen Wan fall in love with them but me? That's because I'm better than them. In addition to my good looks, I'm also erudite and cultured. Is this also a trap set by you? That's for sure. Isn't it a bit too unreasonable? How am I twisting words and forcing logic? If I hadn't married your grandmother and had your father, would there be a bastard like you? Isn't that a trap set by me?" Fang Yen was speechless. Listening to what he said, it seemed to make a lot of sense. Lu Wan came in from outside and asked eagerly, "Dad, how's the betrothal? Has the Yi family agreed to this marriage?" Old Master Feng Hui put away the smile on his face and took a big gulp of tea. He said slowly, pretending to be reserved, "Can they not agree? Mr. Yi was the matchmaker and I was also the old man. My grandson was so outstanding that no village could find him. When they saw us bringing the betrothal gifts, the Yi family was overjoyed. The Yi family's old ancestor personally nodded and said that this matter was settled. Then this matter was settled." Lu Wan put her hands on her chest, tears overflowed from her eyes and said, "That's good. It's good. My son is getting married." As he spoke, he sobbed uncontrollably. Fang Yen knew that she was thinking of her father. Her son was about to get married, but her father had already turned into dust. There was no one to talk about his sorrow and no one to share his joy with. This kind of feeling was really unpleasant. Old Master Feng Hui's face was also gloomy. He held the teacup but could not take another sip of tea. Was there anything more sorrowful and despairing than the death of one's child? Fang Yen walked over and held his mother in his arms. He said with a smile, "Mom, this is a happy thing. Rowan and I are going to get married. Shouldn't you be happy? If we were rejected by the Yi family today, all the things we sent would be thrown back by them. At that time you should cry, right?" Puff. Lu Wan was amused by Fang Yen again. She gave him a reproachful look and said, "You silly boy, you are already a person who is going to get married. How can you still say this kind of nonsense? You and Rowan are in love. How can the Yi family not agree? Even if the Yi family does not agree, Rowan will agree. Yes. Your son is so excellent that I love him to death." Fang Yen laughed and teased himself. He didn't want his mother to be sad, not even a drop of tears. Every tear was a knife, stabbing into Fang Yan's heart. His heart ached faintly again, and the sense of guilt that had been quiet for a long time came again. It seemed to be turbulent, like a flood or a fierce beast. If he had arrived earlier that day, if he had been able to get rid of those good-for-nothings who blocked the way as soon as possible, his father would not have died. If his father was not dead, if Fang Yixing was still alive at this moment, when he learned that his son was going to get married, would he laugh unscrupulously, or would he pretend to be serious and sternly lecture his son to treat his wife well and be gentle when he got married in the future? He would definitely choose the latter because the latter was the character he should have. He loved Fang Yen. He loved his son more than anyone else. However, he was stingy to show it and he firmly hid that love in his flesh and blood. Old Master Feng Hui finally raised his head, looked at Lu Wan with blame and said, "Why are you crying on a happy day? Sir, forget it. The 8th of the 12th lunar month is an auspicious day, and there are many things that need to be taken care of. As an old man, my legs are not convenient, so many things need to be decided by you, the head of the family. You go and have a good talk with Rowan's mother first, find out what the Yi family is thinking and ask Rowan what she wants. We should prepare for what we should prepare and buy what we should buy. There are many things that need you to do and you can't lose your health." Alas, Lu Wan remembered that she had to start preparing for her son's marriage, and her suppressed emotions were suddenly turned over, as if she had been injected with a stimulant, and said, "I'll invite Fang Yan's aunt and sister-in-law to come over and have a good talk with them. I have no experience in this kind of thing, but our Feng family can't let Rowan down. Old Master Feng Hui nodded and said, "Have a good talk and don't be stingy with money." Then he turned to stare at Feng Yan and said, "Boy, you have also made a lot of money these years, haven't you? Hurry up and contribute a little more to your mother. Our Feng family has been quiet for more than 20 years, and this time we will have a good time in Swallow Dock." Feng Yan nodded and said, "Mom, I will ask someone to send you a black card. Don't be thrifty." Lu Wan waved her hand and said, "Silly boy, no matter how poor our Feng family is, we still have enough money for our children's wedding. Don't worry about these things. Just do your own thing." Feng Yan nodded, looked at his mother with concern and said, "You have to take care of yourself. If you are too busy, ask my aunt to come back and help. Don't worry. I know how to arrange it. I have been idle these years and I feel uncomfortable all over. How can I feel tired preparing for my son's wedding?" Lu Wan left in a hurry as it seemed that Feng Yan's wedding was tomorrow. Feng Yan looked at Old Master Feng Hui and said, "Grandpa, do you want me to push you out for a walk?" "No need." Old Master Feng Hui waved his hand and said, "The marriage between you and Ruru has been decided, and this is a joyous occasion for our Feng family. Your father is no longer here, but there are still some things that need to be discussed with him. At least he will be informed. You go and accompany Ruru, I will go and have a word with you." Watching his grandpa push the wheelchair away, Feng Yan's heart was extremely heavy. Ru took the initiative to look for Feng Yan and asked Feng Yan to take a walk beside Xianxia. Swallow Dock wasn't big, and what happened in the east of the village spread to the west of the village in less than an hour. The news of Ru successfully climbing the Heavenly Dao and becoming the youngest Heavenly Dao expert in Wuxia, as well as Ru's marriage with Feng Yan, had already spread throughout the village. The people they met on the way were very kind and enthusiastic when they saw them, and some would even stop to talk to them, asking about Ru's experience in climbing the Heavenly Dao. Ru didn't hide anything and told them everything. Even their attitude towards Feng Yan was a lot warmer, and some even called Feng Yan the new son-in-law. Feng Yan smiled shyly and then thought to himself, "Shouldn't I call Ru bride? Why does it sound like I'm marrying into her family?" Of course, Feng Yan didn't care about these details. To be able to marry Ru, to be able to marry a woman who wholeheartedly loved him and was willing to protect him, Feng Yan's heart was filled with happiness. When they reached a slightly more remote place, no one came to disturb them, and the curved tail of Xianxia became their world. Ru just walked with her head lowered with no intention of speaking. Feng Yan wanted to say something several times, but he didn't want to break the moment of silence. Ru was a very quiet person. When she didn't have to speak, she didn't like to use words to express herself. She would do what she wanted to do, and she wouldn't force herself to do what she didn't want to do. If she liked you, she would hold your hand, and if she hated you, she would chop off your hand. She had a clear distinction between love and hate. Feng Yan's heart was full of emotions. The girl who competed in the Feng family's martial arts arena for the first time was proud and stubborn, with 2 cute braids. When Feng Yan saw her, he thought it would be fun if he could pull her braids. It was really fun. Ru knocked out 2 of his teeth and broke 3 of his fingers. At that time, Ru was really fierce, and she wasn't gentle at all when she fought. Later they fought once a year, and every time they met they would quarrel. Feng Yan regarded her as his archenemy, and he told all his friends bad things about her. Even in his sleep he dreamed that he was being beaten. However, that girl was going to be his wife soon. Life was really full of surprises. Feng Yan suddenly stopped, turned around to look at Ru behind him and said in a deep voice, "I've been thinking that there should be a more special proposal ceremony. I'll run around Yanjing City naked and then shout, 'Ru, marry me.' Or I'll take off my clothes and jump into Xianxia River shouting, 'Ru, marry me.' Or we can go to the African prairie. We'll sit on a hot air balloon and I'll kneel to you on one knee. If you don't agree, I'll cut the rope of the hot air balloon. You'll die." Ru said. "What? If the rope is cut, I'll be fine, but you'll fall to your death." Ru looked at Feng Yan and said. Chapter 8:10. Feng Yan had once read a novel called King of Fire. In the story, the male protagonist Tang Zhong proposed to his 2 girlfriends on a hot air balloon. Look at how shameless and unprincipled he was. Feng Yan despised Tang Zhong's actions. He thought to himself that he would never do such a thing. Even if he wanted to do it, he wouldn't dare. Tang Zhong raised the ring in one hand and scissors in the other. He said that if they didn't agree to his proposal he would cut off the balloon's rope. In the end, the two girls accepted the proposal with tears in their eyes. It turned out that women were also quite afraid of death. Not only were they afraid of death but they were also afraid of heights. Fang Yan also wanted to learn from the senior idol who had many female friends. But Yi Rou's counterattack instantly woke him up. Yi Rou was a heavenly Dao realm expert. If Fang Yan really cut off the balloon's rope in midair, the only one who would fall to his death would be Fang Yan himself. Yi Rou's chances of survival were much higher. From the looks of it, this method was a little romantic and to some people there was a huge loophole. Fang Yan smiled awkwardly and said, I can also run naked in Yanjing City, or jump into a stone river in front of everyone in the village. I just feel that it should be more romantic. I shouldn't use such a traditional method to directly go to your house to give the betrothal gift. Yi Rou looked up at Fang Yan and said, a man's romance isn't expressed in the moment of a proposal, but in life, it can make people feel happy and at ease at all times. If you want to talk about romance, when I failed to climb the heavenly Dao and was about to go berserk, you helped me move a mountain at the expense of your life. That was the most romantic proposal I know. Fang Yan reached out his hand to touch Yi Rou's face. Yi Rou was extremely shy but she stood there and allowed him to molest her. Strange. Fang Yan muttered to himself and said, she's not wearing a mask. Bang. Fang Yan's body soared into the air and flew backward. He quickly got up from the ground and carefully avoided Yi Rou. He said, I just find it a little strange. Logically speaking, you shouldn't say something like that. It doesn't match your character. Come here, Yi Rou called to Fang Yan. What do you want? Fang Yan was testing her step by step. He didn't dare to get too close to Yi Wenru again. No poison leg. I'm sure you're Yi Rou. You're not someone else wearing a mask. Yi Rou reached out and pulled Fang Yan into her arms. No, she pulled Fang Yan in front of her and threw herself into Fang Yan's arms. She wrapped her arms around Fang Yan's body and said softly, I'm very happy to be your wife. Fang Yan was stunned for a moment. Then he held Yi Rou's thin body tightly in his arms. He grinned and said, I'm even happier to be able to marry you. Even my grandfather thinks that you're like a flower stuck in cow dung. My uncles think so too, Yi Rou said. Fang Yan felt that he couldn't communicate with Yi Rou anymore. Since when did this woman become a cold-faced comedian and a comedian? She wasn't good at this before. In the luxurious European-style reception hall of the Qin family's old residence, Grandpa Qin was drinking tea on the sofa. He liked drinking tea. He had a relatively open side in his bones and could accept that the old residence was built in the style of a European castle. However, his taste in drinking tea hadn't changed for decades. In his mind, what could be better than tea in this world? Those coffee, those carbonated drinks. What's so good about them? Li Xinyan sat in front of him and tasted the coffee elegantly. She liked the bitterness and mellow taste of coffee. The smell in the air could awaken her taste buds. The other members of the Qin family stood on both sides. Everyone's eyes were focused on the woman. Li Junling, the woman who was about to become the daughter-in-law of the Qin family, had an affair with a man from the Jiang family, the old enemy of the Qin family. This was not a slap in the face of the Qin family, but a slap in the face of the Qin family. The Qin family was filled with righteous indignation and felt that they had been greatly insulted. However, the elders in the family didn't give any instructions, so they could only keep silent about this matter for the time being. They could endure and wait, but Li Junling's father, the famous piano master of Wuxia, Li Boyong, couldn't sit still. His blood pressure rose and he fainted on the spot. After knowing what had happened, he still forced himself to get up and immediately took his daughter to the Qin family to apologize. Li Boyong was an artist and was quite accomplished in piano. The Li family pushed him to be a spokesperson, using the admiration and attention of the rich and powerful to improve his family's status. In this way, he even had a relationship with the rich and powerful Qin family and successfully betrothed his daughter to the young talent of the Qin family, Qin Chong. Li Boyong was thinking that when his daughter entered the Qin family, it would be the peak of his life. He didn't expect that this daydream would come true so quickly and in such a cruel way. His daughter had an affair with a member of the Jiang family. He understood the serious consequences of this matter. It was mercy for them to find someone to put him in a sack and throw him into the sea, but it was very likely that it would be a disaster that would wipe out the entire family. Whether it was the Qin family or the Jiang family, they were the most powerful existences in the world. In a situation where they didn't lack anything, their face was more important than anything else. However, his daughter's actions had offended both families at the same time. The wedding date was near, and it was said that it happened when she was choosing a wedding dress with the young master of the Qin family. How would the Qin family view such a future daughter-in-law? What about the Jiang family? The relationship between the Jiang family and the Qin family had never been harmonious. The two families viewed each other as enemies, but they also maintained mutual restraint. After this incident, would it break the balance between the two families? It was already winter and the room was already warm. However, Li Boyong, who was wearing a suit and shirt, was sweating profusely and his voice trembled when he spoke. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Li Boyong didn't teach his daughter well, and that's why she did such a shameful thing. Now that it's like this, there's nothing I can say to help. I admit my mistake. I'm willing to bear all the responsibility and consequences. Li Boyong bowed deeply to the Qin family patriarch and said, "Please be merciful, patriarch. Seeing that Boyong and the Qin family are old friends, please let my daughter live." The Qin family patriarch's expression was calm, as if he didn't care about what was happening in front of him. After hearing Li Boyong's words, he waved his hand and said, "What are you saying? Who said I won't let your daughter live?" "Thank you, patriarch." Li Boyong's eyes were moist and he was moved to tears. Li Boyong turned to look at his daughter who was standing behind him and shouted, "Li Junling, kneel." Li Junling stood proudly. Although she was extremely nervous, she still gritted her teeth and said, "Why should I kneel? You did something wrong. What did I do wrong?" Li Junling retorted. "The Jiang family and I know each other and love each other. Who did I offend? I told you long ago that I have another lover, but did you listen to what I said? You wholeheartedly wanted to send me to a rich family, wholeheartedly wanted to make friends with rich people. I have no feelings for Qin Chong, so why should I marry such a man?" Slap. Li Boyong slapped Li Junling's face. His face was gloomy and his body trembled non-stop. He shouted angrily, "You still don't know your mistake. You did such a shameful thing and you still don't know your mistake. I'll beat you to death. I don't have a disgraceful daughter like you." Li Junling's skin was white and tender. After being slapped by her father, a purplish-red handprint quickly appeared on her face. She didn't care, as if she didn't feel any pain. Big tears fell from her eyes and she said, "Beat me to death. If you don't beat me to death, I don't want to live. If I die, you will no longer be a dog in front of these people and they will look up to you. What does it matter if I die?" Li Junling, since I was young, when did you listen to my thoughts? I liked the guitar, but you forced me to learn the piano. When I was a little playful, you were furious and said that I didn't want to improve. When I was a little slow in learning, you scolded me for being stupid. Piano goddess. Ah, who knows how this goddess came to be? I spent all my time to get it and I sacrificed all my hobbies to get it. Genius? Can this kind of person be considered a genius? I know that the matter between me and General Xing is very difficult for you and the whole family. You are afraid, you are worried that you will be implicated. If that's the case, I will die here in front of the Qin family to atone for my sins. In this way they won't hurt you anymore, right? After saying that, Li Junling took out a short dagger from her pocket and slashed it toward her own neck. Bang, a figure flashed. An old nanny who was in charge of pouring water for old Master Qin suddenly appeared and grabbed the dagger from Li Junling's hand with a small move. Li Xian gently stirred the coffee in his cup, looked at Li Junling and said, "Miss, if you want to die, we won't stop you. Everyone has the right to choose their own life." After a pause, he then said, "But can you die a little further away? The carpet in the hall has just been cleaned. If it gets dirty, won't we have to trouble those hard-working service staff?" You are so evil." Li Junling's face was pale and she stared fiercely at Li Xian. "Evil?" Li Xian took a sip of the coffee in his cup and said with a smile, "Miss, if I was really evil, do you think you would still have the chance to stand in front of me and accuse me of being evil?" Chapter 8:11. Every single word that Li Xian said was not a threat. With her current status, there was no need for her to threaten others. She said she would kill you, then she would kill you. She said she wanted you to disappear, then you would never be able to show your face again. Just as she said, if she was really vicious, would Li Junling and her father Li Boyong still have the chance to stand in the Qin family's hall today? Would they still have the chance to be judged by the Qin family, be it punishment or forgiveness? Would they still have the chance? With just a word of command or even a reminder with a glance, the father and daughter would encounter a serious car accident or some other accident. In any case, their lives would end here and they would never have the chance to appear in front of the public again. Or perhaps the Qin family did not need to do anything. There were countless people outside who wanted to please them. Some smart people who didn't mind doing the dirty work would do it cleanly. If it wasn't for a casual greeting at a private gathering, you wouldn't even know who sent the father and daughter away. This was the power of money, the power of power. When anything reached an extreme, the energy that it could erupt with would be astonishing and shocking. Some people were overly arrogant while others could control this power very well. Slap. Li Boyong slapped his daughter again. Li Junling, who was unprepared, was knocked to the ground by his father. Li Boyong looked down at Li Junling and shouted angrily, "Kneel and apologize to the madam." "Kneel and apologize?" Li Junling covered her face and sneered. "What did I do wrong? Do I need to apologize to them? I just fell in love with a man. What's wrong with that? What does this have to do with them? You are Qin Chong's fiancé. I am not Qin Chong's fiancé, you are." Li Junling looked at her father and laughed, saying, "You are Qin Chong's fiancé. I have never liked him and I have never wanted to marry him. You think about it day and night. 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 You dash." Li Boyong pointed at his daughter with a trembling finger, unable to say a complete sentence. Li Junling got up from the ground and tidied up his clothes. He looked at Li Xinyan stubbornly and said, "I'm not even afraid of death. How can I apologize to you people? Yes, perhaps this kind of thing has long been a common occurrence for you, the weak apologizing to the strong, regardless of whether the strong is standing on the side of reason. But today I'm going to disappoint you. What does your apology mean to me?" Li Xinyan looked at Li Junling and asked, "Or what does it mean to the Qin family?" "I don't care and the Qin family doesn't care," Li Xinyan said lightly. "If you were just an ordinary woman or if you were still the goddess of piano you are now, you would have nothing to do with the Qin family. Even if you had an affair or died for love, the Qin family wouldn't even look at you. However, you're engaged to a man from the Qin family. One of your feet has already stepped into the Qin family's door. Whether it was intentional or not, at the engagement ceremony, you nodded and agreed. After the engagement ceremony, you did such a thing, which indeed made the Qin family lose face. For the time being, you have to bear the criticism of some boring people. But that's all there is to it. Even if something like this happened, the Qin family is still the Qin family. When others talk about it, the Qin family's reputation will be hurt. When you are forgotten by others, when Qin Chong has a new fiancé, can people still remember who you are? But after this kind of thing, girl, are you still you?" Li Xinyan looked at Li Junling sympathetically and said, "As a woman I can understand how you feel. But your choice is really too stupid. Until now, you still don't know what will happen to you after this matter is exposed. You also don't understand how lucky you are to be able to stand in the hall of the Qin family right now." Li Boyong's forehead was dripping with sweat, but he didn't bother to wipe it off. He kept bowing and apologizing, saying, "Madam, please don't lower yourself to her level. She is just a child who doesn't know how to appreciate favors. If you want to scold her, just direct it at me. I am her father and I should bear the responsibility for her." Li Xinyan sneered and said, all right, Li Boyong, you father and daughter don't put on this sad drama in front of me. I have no interest in watching a drama." Yes, Li Boyong nodded repeatedly and said, "We are not acting. We are not acting, we are here to apologize. We are wrong, very wrong. No matter if we are beaten or scolded, even if madam asks me to jump into the valley, I will not frown." Li Xinyan raised his head and looked at Li Boyong, saying, "You are a good father, but you spoil your daughter too much. Go back." "Madam?" Li Boyong looked at Li Xinyan with a frightened expression. He knelt on the ground and cried bitterly, saying, "Madam, I beg you, please let us go this time. I am willing to atone for this matter. I am willing to die for Qin Chong, for young Master Qin. I only ask that you let go of Junling, let go of the Li family." Li Junling's face was as white as paper. His father's reaction had already explained everything. The Qin family wanted to kill them to avenge their humiliation? These rich and powerful nobles. Their hearts were really vicious. Did you misunderstand something? Li Xinyan's eyebrows twitched. He glanced at Li Boyong with some dissatisfaction and said, "Tears can be exchanged for forgiveness, but it can also be exchanged for double the hatred of others. Don't worry, the Qin family will not retaliate against you. From now on, the two families will no longer have any relationship. Do you understand what I mean?" "I understand." Li Boyong nodded repeatedly. The two families would no longer have any relationship. This meant that Li Xinyan had publicly annulled the marriage between Qin Chong and his daughter. His daughter had done such a thing. This was the proper response from the Qin family. In addition, the majority of the Li family's businesses were connected to the Qin family. If the Qin family severed ties with the Li family, those businesses would most likely be lost. Not only that, but they would also be attacked by those who heard the news. At that time, without the support of the Qin family, how could the Li family retaliate? They could only watch as the Li family's businesses were divided by those vicious wolves. Unless the Jiang family is willing to protect them, Li Boyong thought in a corner of his heart. Li Xinyan waved his hand and said, "Let's go back." Li Boyong crawled up from the ground and bowed to Li Xinyan, to the silent old master Qin, and to everyone in the Qin family. Then he pulled Li Junling's hand and walked outside. "We're letting them go just like that? That woman did such a thing. That's right, let's get someone to break her legs. Let's see how she can steal men in the future. She didn't hit or scold them. She didn't even scold them. Will outsiders laugh at the Qin family for being weak and easy to bully?" No matter what, Li Xinyan was the current head of the Qin family. When she was handling family matters, outsiders were not allowed to interrupt or criticize her. Especially when outsiders were present, the Qin family had to give the impression that they were united and harmonious. However, after outsiders left, they had the right to speak freely and express their dissatisfaction. Of course, Li Xinyan also had the right to ignore them. Li Xinyan looked at old Master Qin, who was leisurely drinking tea, and said with a smile, "This tea was plucked from the few tea trees behind Etienne's courtyard. Because Etienne watched them grow up, she treasured them very much. When she plucked the tea leaves, she didn't allow anyone to help her. She plucked the leaves by herself, and each leaf felt like she was cutting off a piece of flesh from her body. After several days of hard work, she only got 2 taels of tea leaves after frying them. She was usually very stingy and didn't usually let people drink. Only when I went to visit her would she ask someone to bring me a cup of tea. She's very close to Grandpa, so she probably gave you more than half of the 2 taels of tea leaves, right?" Old Master Qin laughed loudly and said proudly, "That granddaughter of mine, Etienne, is very proud. Ordinary people can't even drink a cup of tea from her, not to mention the tea leaves she plucked herself. But Etienne is very close to me, so after she finished frying her tea leaves, she secretly gave me a small pot. She even told me not to let you find out. How did you see through it at a glance?" Li Xinyan put down the coffee cup in his hand and said bitterly, "The tea in your hands are all rare and good. How can you find tea leaves with such big leaves after brewing?" After receiving this flattery, old Master Qin felt refreshed and his smile became even more radiant. He said, "If you like it, I can also give you some. However, I'll tell you something private. You can't let that girl Etienne know about it. Otherwise, I won't be able to drink her treasured tea leaves anymore. The tea leaves she gave me really don't taste that good. It's far worse than the tea leaves I collected. But since my granddaughter has already given me the tea leaves, if I don't drink it, she'll feel hurt. That's why I brewed a cup of tea every now and then, thinking that I can finish it as soon as possible." The Qin family members in the living room looked at each other. They were seriously questioning whether this was a good way to handle things. "Why did you ignore us and talk about Qin Etienne's tea leaves?" Qin Chong pushed open the living room door, walked in and knelt down in front of Li Xinyan. "I want revenge," Qin Chong said in a hoarse voice. Chapter 8:12. People were divided into yin and yang, and everything had 2 sides. Because of the 2 talented women in the Qin family, the 2 generations of men in the Qin family were collectively weak and couldn't stand out. Because of the arrival of Li Xinyan, the daughter-in-law of the previous generation, the power of the Qin family fell, and they became a plaything in the hands of a woman. In this generation there was another Qin Etienne who was smart and talented and had made a lot of achievements. Some people said that his mother was manipulating behind the scenes in order to make her daughter the prodigy of the Qin family, so that she could seize power. Some people also said that the son should be like Jiang Junling and the adopted daughter should be like Qin Yitian, which was also the advertising slogan that the Qin family and the Jiang family paid people to hype, so that they could outshine the other rich and powerful families. When Qin Yitian grew up, some of the projects she independently invested in all showed dazzling results. It was said that she had already shown outstanding business talent when she was still a student. With her as the middleman, the Qin family and Lu Chaoge created the world-famous Chaoyan technology. When Jiang Junling died, Qin Yitian also encountered some criticism. Some people said with the mentality of watching a good show, "Look, we have already proved that one is a fake, let's see how long the other one can last." However, no matter what people said, Qin Yitian was still Qin Yitian, still the Qin Yitian that everyone respected and looked up to. Some people said that it was a tragedy to live in the same generation as Qin Yitian. For the young generation of the Qin family, it was a complete tragedy to live in the same family as Qin Yitian. Compared with a genius like Qin Yitian, Qin Chang's ability was not obvious, and his talent in all aspects was not outstanding enough. But compared with the other young generation of the Qin family, or compared with the young people outside, he was already superior. In the past, Qin Chang was gentle and elegant, liked to protect the young generation of the family to win people's hearts, and liked to play tricks to get some small advantages. Every time Qin Chang appeared, he was beautiful. Even in Beijing, where there were crouching tigers and hidden dragons, he was considered a somewhat famous figure. Now Qin Chang was like a different person. His hair was messy, his clothes were untidy, his eyes were sunken, and there was a pile of eye wax waiting to fall off naturally at the corner of his eyes. His face was pale and he looked like a vampire who had not been exposed to sunlight for a long time. In the past, only young Master Qin Chang made others fall out of love. He had never experienced such an embarrassing betrayal. His fiancée had been having an affair with another man before they got married. Her twisting and moaning made countless people talk about it. These were all things he had never experienced before. He and Li Junling had never had any decent skin contact. Can you imagine that? Young masters like them were also playing innocent with others? Qin Chang really fell in love with Li Junling. He had always regarded Li Junling as his future wife. In any case, she was going to be his woman very soon, so why should he be so anxious to show that he didn't have the demeanor of a man? In the end, when he was picking out a wedding dress for his future wife, he saw such an ungentlemanly video. After the incident, Qin Chang locked himself in his room and didn't go out. Because he smoked too much, even his throat was swollen and hoarse. Every word he spoke seemed to be rubbing his throat until it bled. "I want revenge." Qin Chang raised his head and looked at Li Xian. His yellowish eyes were bloodshot. "Jiang Xing has gone too far." Li Xian sighed softly. He walked over and wanted to pull Qin Chang up from the ground. Qin Chang knelt on the ground and refused to get up. He looked up at Li Xian and said, "I don't hate Li Junling. This woman has nothing to do with me anymore. But Jiang Xing's family has gone too far. I want revenge. I must get revenge." Since Qin Chang wasn't willing to get up, Li Xian had no reason to keep pulling him. She sat back on the sofa and looked at Qin Chang and said, "How do you want revenge?" "I want Jiang Junling to die. I want the Jiang family to be destroyed. I want them to go to the 18th level of hell," Qin Chang said while gritting his teeth. No matter what kind of family he came from, no matter what kind of temperament he had, his fiancée having an affair with another man was something that no one could tolerate. Qin Chang was usually very prideful. He always boasted that he was the only person in the Qin family other than Qin Yitian. He had his own circle of friends. Everyone who saw him would respectfully call him young Master Qin. However, everything was ruined. The moment that video was released, or the moment that his fiancée knelt under that man's body, all of his dignity and pride were destroyed. I know how childish my actions were. I also know how stupid it was for me to collude with some brothers in the family to oust you. I know that you hate me. You don't even care about me. However, I want to ask you one thing. I want you to declare war on the Jiang family." "That's impossible." Li Xian refused without hesitation. It was as if there was no room for negotiation. "Why?" Qin Chang said with a pained expression. "Don't you hate the Jiang family? Doesn't Qin Yitian hate the Jiang family? Don't you want to declare war on the Jiang family for how they treated Fang Yan?" Can you turn a blind eye and pretend nothing happened when the Jiang family humiliated me like that? Does the Qin family still want face? Do we still have dignity? Li Xinyan looked at Qin Chong with a serious expression. The Qin family belongs to everyone in the Qin family. It doesn't belong to just one person. Every decision of the Qin family must be in line with the interests of the entire Qin family. Etian doesn't like the Jiang family. I don't like the Jiang family either. However, we can't declare war on the Jiang family just because we hate them. We'll push the Qin family to the edge of danger. I definitely won't agree to that. After a pause, Li Xinyan continued. However, General Xing of the Jiang family clearly knows that Li Junling and Qin Chong are engaged. That's too much. If the Qin family doesn't do anything, the outside world will think that the Qin family is weak and easy to bully. I declare that from now on, we will cut off all business with the Jiang family. In some important areas or core areas of the Jiang family, we can have a greater say. Qin Chong froze for a while. Then she laid on the ground and cried. She kept saying to Li Xinyan, "Thank you. Thank you." Old Master Qin looked at his daughter-in-law with a smile. He leisurely drank the tea that his granddaughter gave him. The Qin family looked at each other. Was the Qin family going to declare war on the Jiang family? Stupid. Stupid beyond belief. Li Boyong wiped the sweat off his forehead as he lectured his daughter, who was sitting next to him with an ashen face. By doing such a thing, you have trampled on the Qin family's dignity. How could the Qin family forgive you? As he spoke, they were sitting in a Mercedes-Benz limousine on their way home. The driver was a Liang Li Boyong's driver for many years. What does a family like them care about the most? What they care about the most is loyalty and face. If you make them lose face, what won't they do? You dare to give them face? You dare to say that they are vicious? Junling, you haven't seen a truly vicious thing. You usually seem to be a clever man, but this time how could you be so wrong? Li Junling looked out of the window in a daze. It was as if he didn't hear what his father said. Thank God. They finally let us go for the time being. Li Xinyan is very powerful. But she's also very magnanimous. She said she won't trouble us. That means she won't trouble us. I'm afraid that Qin Chong and other members of the Qin family won't be able to swallow it. Go abroad. Go abroad immediately. Didn't the Borna Orchestra in Vienna invite you to perform there? You should take this opportunity to go abroad. Now the limelight is at its peak. If you stay in Beijing, you won't even have a chance to go out. Li Junling was finally moved. He turned to look at his father and said, Juanxing. My dear lady, why are you still thinking about him? Li Boyong almost knelt down to his daughter. How could Juanxing jump out to support you after such a thing happened? Unless they completely fall out with the Qin family. Otherwise he won't protect you. I'm afraid he can't even protect himself now. Daughter, don't put your hope on that man. If he really did it for you, he shouldn't have treated you like that. Li Junling reached out and held his father's hand. His eyes were filled with tears as he said, I don't blame him. I really like him. Everything is voluntary. Dad, this is the first time I've fallen in love with a man since I was young. Can you understand how I feel? Li Boyong wiped his daughter's tears. I understand. I can understand. But safety comes first. Go out quickly. Let your mother go with you. I'm worried about you going out like this. I'll stay in Beijing and think of a way. When the situation calms down, you can come back. Or never come back. Dad. Daughter, I'll teach you something. I shouldn't say it, but I think it's necessary for you to know. What? Never trust a man. Li Boyong said with a serious face. That why? Li Junling didn't understand. You're a man too. Li Boyong smiled bitterly. 'Cause I'm a man too. That's why I can say that. Click. The backseat door was suddenly locked. Liang, what are you doing? Li Boyong was greatly alarmed and shouted. Master Mississippi, don't blame me. Liang opened the door and jumped out. The Mercedes-Benz deviated from the mountain road. It broke through the railing and crashed into the steep mountain stream. That. Li Junling grabbed the seat in front of her and screamed. A Liang, you traitor. Li Boyong was also frightened by this scene and shouted in a hoarse voice. Crash. Crash. The Mercedes-Benz crashed into the stone wall again and again. It was like a black cannonball crashing into the endless purgatory. Chapter 8:13. Old House. In the courtyard. Osmanthus flowers were fragrant in October, but there was a golden osmanthus tree in the courtyard that bloomed a little late. It was only deep into winter that it emitted that frightening rich fragrance. General Xing knelt under the golden osmanthus tree, resisting the invasion of the fragrance while enduring the blows from the feather duster. Pa! General Xing was hit on the head. Pa! The feather duster hit his skull again. Pa! Pa! After a dozen or so lashes, old man Shifu threw the feather duster in his hand onto the ground. He walked to the stone table and sat down. He picked up a cup of tea that was still steaming and took a sip. Do you know why I didn't slap your face? Jiang Shifu held the teacup and asked General Xing, who was kneeling there. Because you're afraid that you'll ruin your face and your grandson won't be able to go out and meet people, General Xing said in a low voice. Yes. Don't hit people in the face. I've always told you this. Why don't you listen? The cherishing fortune old man said with a face full of regret. What you're doing isn't just slapping the Qin clan's face. You're practically stepping on their heads and shitting on them. This is a huge mistake that will cause them to become enemies. Grandpa, I know I was wrong. This matter, I really had no other choice. General Xing straightened his spine and looked straight into old man Jiang Shifu's eyes, saying, I really like Junling and she has deep feelings for me. The two of us are sincerely in love. I know what I'm doing is wrong and I've thought about leaving her. But Lord Jun didn't agree. I was soft-hearted and couldn't make a decision. Originally, I wanted to wait until Lord Jun got married before completely severing our relationship. I didn't expect something like this to happen. Scoundrel. Jiang Shifu slammed his palm on the stone table and angrily shouted, What do you mean unable to restrain yourself? You're too daring for lust. You clearly knew that Li Junling was already engaged to the Qin family, yet you still dared to tempt him to do such an immoral thing. If the Qin family did this to our Jiang family, how would you deal with it? The hatred of killing my father and stealing my wife is absolutely irreconcilable. Now is the crucial moment in the battle between you and Feng Yan. In order to prevent the Qin family from participating in the battle, we offered a huge condition, but what was the result? Not only did you fail to balance your relationship with the Qin family, you even dragged the Qin family down with you. If a man can't control his own waistband, what future can he have? Old man Shifu's gaze turned sharp. He looked at General Xing and said, Do you think that, now that the military order is gone, I have no other candidates? Is that why you are so unbridled? Let me tell you, General, we still have many outstanding youths in the General family. With just a bit of polishing, they are all good materials. Grandpa, I'm sorry. General Xing's knees were pressed against the cold concrete floor as he said in a deep voice, I know I did something wrong. I will definitely find a way to make it up to you. I promise I'll take care of this. How are you going to deal with this? Old man cherishing fortune asked as he looked at General Xing. General Xing hesitated slightly, but still said frankly, Since it's already happened, it's already impossible for us to reconcile with the Qin family. Since it's like this, it's better to take the initiative and drag them into the quagmire. We don't want to fight with the Qin family until both sides suffer, and the Qin family naturally has the same thoughts. If we take the initiative and let the Qin family feel our aggressiveness, maybe they will retreat. After the Qin family finds out about this, they will definitely be furious. Junling sighed. I'm afraid the pressure will be great. This matter has touched their bottom line, they definitely won't take it lying down. Qin Chong has a high heart but shallow talent, and is extremely concerned about face. He will definitely think of a way to get back at them. Junling's situation is very dangerous. General Xing looked at grandfather Jiang Shifu and said, I have wronged Junling in this matter. She is the most innocent person here. As a responsible man, I will stand up for Junling. I will go to the Li family to propose marriage and officially marry Li Junling. Otherwise, I'm afraid she won't be able to persevere. I ask Grandpa for your approval. A divine light flashed in Jiang Shifu's eyes, and he instantly returned to his old and muddy appearance. He looked at his grandson for a long time, then said in a low voice, Since you have already decided, then do it. This is your last test. If you succeed, you will be a dragon. If you fail, you will be a worm. That is all. Yes, General Xing respectfully responded. I definitely won't disappoint Grandpa. After General Xing left, old man Jiang Shifu held a cup of tea that was gradually cooling in a daze. Pitiful woman, Jiang Shifu muttered to himself. The Qin family and the Jiang family have started a war. I knew they would definitely start a war. This is too exciting. The Jiang family's General Xing made a cuckold out of the Qin family's Qin Chong, and the Qin family immediately retaliated and eliminated Li Junling. The Qin family's methods tsk. I heard that the Jiang family wanted to kill them to silence them, in order to put this shit on the Qin family's head so that the Qin family won't be able to say anything. After the video was released, there was a short period of silence between the Qin family and the Jiang family, then the situation became intense. Wuxia country's famous piano master Li Boyong brought the female protagonist of the video, Li Junling, to the Qin family to apologize, but on the way back, the luxurious car they were riding in crashed into a ravine, killing both of them. During the crash, the car exploded and the father and daughter were burned into charcoal. At the same time, General Xing brought generous gifts and a matchmaker to the Li family to propose marriage, hoping that the Li family and the Qin family would officially cancel the marriage and fulfill his and Li Junling's hard-to-sever relationship. He didn't wait for Li Junling to return, but he received news that Li Junling had gotten into a car accident. It was said that after receiving the news, General Xing cried bitterly, and even smashed many of the Li family's things, clenching his teeth and yelling, "They've gone too far." Who is the one going too far? The onlookers made all sorts of interpretations of this. Some people said it was obvious this was the Qin family going too far. Although Li Junling had already apologized to the Qin family, Li Boyong had already brought his daughter to the Qin family to apologize, but on the way back they got into a car accident. It was obvious that the Qin family wanted to show their power to the Jiang family. The woman that the Qin family couldn't get, the Jiang family shouldn't even think about getting. Some people said that General Xing was deliberately setting up a trap. General Xing knew that this time he had angered the Qin family and that a war was inevitable, so he might as well kill them to silence them, and then pour the dirty water on the Qin family, making them unable to extricate themselves from the quagmire, and also accept the attacks and judgment of public opinion. The war had already begun. While the outside was in an uproar, Fang Yan was sitting in Qin Etienne's villa, drinking tea. He was drinking tea that Qin Etienne had personally grown and personally picked. To be honest, the taste of the tea really wasn't that great, far from the top-grade tea that the Qin family had all year round. But young Miss Qin had kindly brought the tea in front of you, waiting for your evaluation with a face full of expectation, so how could you not give a few polite words of praise? "It's really good tea," Fang Yan said with a face full of enjoyment. "The last time I came here I already felt that these tea leaves weren't ordinary, but now I know that they were personally picked by Etienne. Like I said, other than the fact that Qin Etienne can't pick the stars from the sky, there's nothing in this world that's too difficult for her. There's another thing." Qin Etienne had a mischievous smile and said, "Qin Etienne also can't pick the heart of a man." Cough cough cough. Fang Yan coughed violently. With a red face and a thick neck he said, "That's because that man has eyes but can't see." "Not really," Qin Etienne sighed softly and said, "That's because that man chose a better woman." Seeing the regret on Qin Etienne's face, Fang Yan's mood was also a bit heavy and he said softly, "It's not about who's better than who, it's only about suitability. How do you know that I'm not suitable?" Qin Etienne interrupted Fang Yan and asked. Seeing that Fang Yan was once again speechless by her question, Qin Etienne giggled. After laughing for a while, her face became gloomy again and she said, "You're getting married, right?" "Yes." "The 8th of the 12th lunar month." Fang Yan nodded. "So annoying," Qin Etienne said. "If you're like other men, when I ask such a question, you lie and say that there's no such thing. But if you were that kind of man, I wouldn't like you so much. I think with your conditions you can find a better man. What kind of man in this world can resist your charm?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "Yes. Everyone says that, my mother also told me that. But no one cares about the main point of the matter. The main point is that the man I like is you. You see, you don't know what to say again." "I understand you. If I were you I probably wouldn't know what to say either." Qin Etienne pursed his lips and chuckled. "But if I were you I might not meet another girl like me who always says the words like in love. When I think about it this way I feel that this world is so boring. So I'll stick to being myself and you should stick to being yourself. I'll continue to like you and you should continue to be the person I like. Will you come to my wedding?" Fang Yan asked carefully. "In Swallow Dock it's an old-fashioned wedding. You might think it's old-fashioned and boring, Qin Etian glanced at Fang Yan with a faint smile on his face and asked, Mr. Fang, are you afraid that I'll ruin your wedding? Chapter 8:14. What's the most troublesome thing about preparing for a wedding? It's that you don't know who you should invite and who you shouldn't. If you send an invitation, you're worried that people won't come. If you don't send an invitation, you're worried that people will complain. Fang Yan wasn't afraid that Qin Etian wouldn't come. On the contrary, he was afraid that Qin Etian would come. He was afraid that she would come and make trouble. According to their relationship, if Fang Yan got married, he would naturally send an invitation to Qin Etian. However, Fang Yan knew Qin Etian's feelings for him. If he told her that he was going to marry Yi Ro, would she feel sad? Before Fang Yan could think of a way to say it, Qin Etian took the initiative to ask. In this case, Fang Yan had no reason to hide anything. But why did Qin Etian look at me so strangely? How come? Fang Yan knew how difficult it was to deal with Qin Etian. Fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He held the teacup with both hands and looked at the pots of chrysanthemum in the yard. I'm just afraid that you're too busy or you don't like the traditional wedding. I like it very much. Qin Etian squinted his eyes and smiled. Do you really want me to go? Of course it's true, Fang Yan said seriously. I'm very sincere. In this case I'll go. Qin Etian hesitated for a moment and nodded. Fang Yan also grinned and said, I'm very happy that you can go to my wedding. Really? Qin Etian looked at Fang Yan and said, On the day of your wedding, I'll put on my most beautiful dress and my favorite phoenix coronet. I'll dress myself up beautifully to be your bridesmaid. What do you think? Fang Yan nodded. Fang Yan nodded. Imagining the scene of Qin Etian appearing at Swallow Dock in a gorgeous gown and an expensive phoenix coronet, Fang Yan felt his head begin to swell with pain. As expected, the thing he was most worried about was about to happen. If Qin Etian attended the wedding in Swallow Dock in this manner, in the eyes of outsiders, who would be the bride that day, be Yi Ro or her? Although Yi Ro is broad-minded, she is a woman after all. Doesn't she mind it at all? Fang Yan looked at Qin Etian with a bitter smile and said, I know you won't do that, right? Why not? Qin Etian asked back. This is my usual style. Why should I change it? Besides, I also want to prove to some people that I didn't lose because I was worse than others, but because I was a little slower. Etian. Qin Etian giggled and looked at Fang Yan's nervous face. She said, Are you afraid, Mr. Fang? I'm not afraid. I'm just worried that things will get complicated. Qin Etian sighed softly and said, That's your wedding, the most important day in your life. How can I ruin it? Maybe I'll be very busy that day and have a lot of work to deal with. Maybe I suddenly have an upset stomach or some other problems. I won't be able to attend your wedding that day. Actually, Fang Yan looked at Qin Etian and said, I still hope that you can attend my wedding. Yes, I also want to. Qin Etian nodded with a smile, but her eyes were a little moist. She said, I want to see if you look handsome as the groom. I want to see if you will be nervous when you bow to heaven and earth. I want to see the bride's happy face when you hold her hand. I want to see all the guests say their sincere blessings to you. But I can't do it. Qin Etian raised her head and the tear that was about to fall fell back. She was Qin Etian, the Qin Etian who was as proud as a queen. Tears were superfluous and unnecessary burdens to her. I can accept you marrying other women, but I really don't like it. I hope you're unhappy. I hope you're not happy. Then you'll understand that I'm better. Fang Yan was silent. He really wanted to hold this girl who was arrogant even when he confessed to her. But he didn't dare and couldn't do that. She was no longer a child. She was no longer his student. She was Qin Etian, the little princess of the Qin family, the little beauty of Yanjing, Qin Etian. Knock, knock, knock. Coco pushed the door open in her high heels. She looked at Qin Etian and said, Miss, Madam is here. I got it. Qin Etian took out a piece of tissue to wipe the little bit of moisture from the corner of her eyes. She didn't want others to see her weak and helpless side. Even if that person was her mother. Li Xinyan was here. This was the first time Fang Yan saw Li Xinyan in Qin Etian's villa. The mother and daughter had one thing in common. Every time they went out, it was like a visit from the head of a country. Following Li Xinyan were 5 luxury cars, a dozen bodyguards and 2 confidential assistants. Li Xinyan was surrounded by them, like a queen who came out to inspect her territory. The bodyguards and assistants dispersed outside. Li Xinyan was welcomed into the living room by Qin Yitian and Fang Yan. He said, "What are you two talking about?" "We're talking about Fang Yan's wedding," Qin Yitian said expressionlessly. Her emotions didn't fluctuate at all. It was as if she was talking about a very insignificant matter. "Fang Yan is getting married. Did he send you an invitation?" Li Xinyan looked at her daughter's face and said to Fang Yan, "Let's talk alone." Then she took the lead and walked to the backyard of the villa. Fang Yan glanced at Qin Yitian and had to stand up and follow her. The backyard of the villa was where Fang Yan often went to the hot spring. Li Xinyan sat on a rattan chair and waited for Fang Yan's arrival. Fang Yan walked in front of Li Xinyan and said, "Teacher, Yitian cried just now," Li Xinyan said. Fang Yan was very shocked. Qin Yitian did show signs of crying just now, but he saw very clearly that the tears didn't flow down at all. Moreover, before knowing that Li Xinyan was coming, Qin Yitian used a wet tissue to wipe the corners of her eyes. She used a definite sentence, not a question, which meant that she was sure that Qin Yitian cried just now. Was this the legendary mother-daughter bond? No. Fang Yan wanted to make his description more accurate. Qian is a very proud person. Yes, because she is a very proud person, she disdains to fight for things. But if she doesn't fight for things, how can she get what she wants? Li Xinyan obviously also felt that his daughter's emotional problems were a bit tricky. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Fang Yan, don't blame me for bringing it up again. I'll ask you again. Are you really not going to consider the proposal from last time?" Fang Yan was silent for a long time, then looked at Li Xinyan and said, "I really don't want to refuse. Because every time I refuse I feel like I'm hurting Yitian. But you also know the situation right now. I already have a fiancé, I'm going to marry another girl, the betrothal gift has already been given, the wedding date has already been set. How can I let that girl down and choose Yitian? If that's the case, how can I be worthy of Yitian's love?" Li Xinyan sighed softly and said, "I just didn't think that my daughter would lose. Ever since she was young she has never lost." "Alright, don't feel troubled, this kind of thing can't be forced. Since Yitian has already decided to give up, I can't interfere too much." Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan and said, "You already know about the recent situation, right?" "Situation? What situation?" Fang Yan asked with a confused expression. Li Xinyan's expression was gentle as he said softly, "Fang Yan, do you really not know anything? Are you talking about the matter of General Hang stealing Qin Chong's girlfriend?" When this matter was exposed, I was also quite surprised. General Hang looks like a gentleman on the surface, but I didn't expect him to be a beast in human clothing, capable of doing all kinds of shameless things. Speaking of which, my relationship with Qin Chong is quite good. Although we had some disagreements the last time we met at Junwei House, we quickly became very good friends. I haven't had the chance to see him since coming to Beijing this time, otherwise I would have to properly comfort him. Fang Yan. Li Xinyan's gaze became sharp and said, "Do you really think that no one knows that you were the one who released that video?" Fang Yan looked at Li Xinyan with a surprised expression and said, "You're actually suspecting me?" "I'm not suspecting, I'm certain. I'm certain that you did it." "You have proof." "I don't have proof." Li Xinyan's words sounded a bit unreasonable as he said, "Feeling, this is my feeling and also the answer that I came up with after analyzing it. Every time you only need to pay attention to who is the biggest beneficiary behind the scenes to easily find the answer." Fang Yan. After that video was exposed, the Qin family and the Jiang family became mortal enemies. Even if the Qin family is unwilling to help, they will not accept any possibility of cooperation with the Jiang family. In addition, the Jiang family's reputation has fallen to the ground, and they have become the talk and laughing stock of the people of Beijing. Killing several birds with one stone, isn't this your plan? Fang Yan looked at Li Xinyan with a serious expression and said, "Teacher, what's your attitude? What do you think of this matter? Do you think it's good or bad that this happened?" "From your point of view, it's naturally excellent. A stroke of genius." Li Xinyan praised. "From your point of view? It's also good," Li Xinyan said expressionlessly. "At least the noise in the house has disappeared and a few people have become obedient." Fang Yan opened his mouth and smiled, then said, "If that's the case, then I'll be honest with you. This matter was done by me." Fang Yan. Li Xinyan's expression suddenly became murderous. "So it was you?" "It wasn't me." Fang Yan immediately denied. I'm just joking, how could I think of such a brilliant idea? Huh. Chapter 8:15. It's just a game of words. If you think it's good that it happened, then I'm the one who did it. If you think it's bad, then it has nothing to do with me. You said it yourself, you don't have any evidence to prove that I have anything to do with this. Fang Yan isn't trying to hide anything, I just don't want to bring trouble to myself because of this. Of course, if he can gain some benefits or take advantage of something, he can be thick-skinned and admit it for now. Fang Yan. Li Xinyan stared coldly at Fang Yan and said, "Is this your attitude?" "This isn't my attitude, this is the attitude I'm showing to cater to your attitude," Fang Yan said with a smile. "You're worried that I'll take revenge on you?" Li Xinyan asked Fang Yan. "Do you think I'll hate or blame the culprit who released this video just to protect the Qin family's reputation? I did have that worry before. After all, after the video was released, the Qin family was pushed to the teeth of the storm, ridiculed and belittled. The Qin family's reputation was ruined, and they probably won't be able to raise their heads in public for a while. Moreover, the Qin family originally had more choices. However, after this incident, the number of choices available to them has become very limited," Fang Yan said with a smile. "That's right. But now I know Teacher Li's stance on this matter, and I also know that Teacher Li has always cared for me. The Qin family cutting off all ties with the Jiang family and starting a fierce battle in some areas where the Jiang family has an advantage. This is a great thing for me and also the greatest support for me. When the Qin family and the Jiang family are in a chaotic battle, the pressure on Huaqing has decreased a lot. This isn't caring for you, but the Qin family has its own dignity and reputation to protect." Li Xinyan expressionlessly looked at Fang Yan and corrected his self-perception. "I'm really angry that you suddenly released that video. The elders of the Qin family are also angry. But as I said, from your perspective, you have 100 reasons to do so." "Yes," Fang Yan nodded. "I have other methods as well. For example, after getting the video, I would find a suitable opportunity to send it to Qin Chong. As long as Qin Chong knew about this, the wedding between the Qin family and Li Junling would be ruined. The Qin family and the Jiang family would become mortal enemies. However, I was worried that Qin Chong's influence was still too small. I was worried that someone in the Qin family would want to suppress this matter. If that's the case, Li Junling won't be able to display her greatest value. So you pushed it to the public? I can only do this." Fang Yan looked at Li Xinyan sincerely. "You also know that my current situation isn't too good. The Jiang family is closing in on us step by step and we don't have much power to fight back. Li Junling is a chess piece that I have my eyes on since a long time ago. Regardless of whether she is related to the Qin family or not, things will come to this, unless she doesn't leave any evidence behind. Everyone lives a difficult life," Li Xinyan said with a sigh. "Yes. Everyone's life is not easy. I was forced to this point by the Jiang family, so if I can find a chance to fight back or win, I will always want to try. At that time, morality and conscience will temporarily retreat, and I will first ensure that I and my friends can live well." Li Xinyan nodded, then looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Li Junling was killed. On the way out of the Qin family, she got into a car accident." "I know," Fang Yan said. "What do you think of this?" "I expected General Xing to play this hand," Fang Yan said coldly. He hated people who disregarded life. Those people had no compassion or virtue. They weren't worthy of being human. He saw that he was about to lose his hand, but he couldn't save the situation, so he simply flipped the table. This way no one would be able to see the end. General Xing and Li Junling were having an affair. He couldn't clean up this matter. Whether it was giving up on Li Junling or accepting her, it was an incredibly difficult matter for him. If he gave up on Li Junling, his reputation would fall to the ground. He would be criticized and attacked by countless people, and it would be difficult for him to gain the trust of others in the future. Even the family would lose their expectations of him. Accepting Li Junling was the same as stabbing a thorn in the Qin family's eye. Every time the Qin family saw Li Junling and General Xing together, they would feel angry. General Xing isn't an idiot. Regardless of whether he can take over the Jiang family in the future, he can't create such a strong opponent for himself. He can't keep a target by his side at all times. When the Qin family's hostility reaches a peak, no one can predict what they will do. General Xing doesn't dare risk his life. Besides, Li Junling was previously the fiancé of the Qin family. If General Xing wants to marry Li Junling, he probably won't be able to get past the Jiang family, right? Jiang Shifu is an old man who cares about his face. Would he let his grandson, the man who might be the future leader of the Jiang family, marry a woman who had an affair before? Even though the object of that woman's affair was his own grandson, this is still something that he can't tolerate and accept. Li Xinyan laughed lightly and said, "Perhaps General Xing really wants to marry Li Junling?" He brought people to the Li family to propose, but when he received the bad news that Li Junling had gotten into a car accident, he cried endlessly. It said that he even smashed 2 mahogany chairs and a Ming dynasty vase. Fang Yan laughed coldly and said, "The reason why General Xing dared to go to the Li family to propose was because he knew that he didn't need to be responsible for anyone. If he knew that Li Junling would get into a car accident, then why wouldn't he bring people to the Li family and pretend to be an infatuated man?" The connoisseur understands the artistry while the layman enjoys the show. Even though we understand the mystery behind this, the majority of people in this world are made up of ordinary people. After something like this happened, General Xing's reputation should be pretty good right now, right? Very good. Li Xinyan said. Some people compare them to the butterfly lovers, saying that the Qin family ruined the marriage of a pair of people who truly loved each other. He became the representative of love and righteousness. "Look, our opponent is such a smart guy," Fang Yan said with a smile. "He caused such a big trouble by fooling around with a woman, but in the end he didn't have to clean up after anyone, and he even won reputation and sympathy. I like smart young people." Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan and said, "But I don't like smart people who do things without principles or limits." "So you have a reason to like me?" Fang Yan said seriously. "I'm smart and I do things with principles and limits. I believe in Etienne's eyesight." Li Xinyan didn't deny it this time. "She can't like a scumbag." At this time of the year, people in Beijing already needed to wear windbreakers or thicker cotton padded jackets to keep out the cold, but Huaqing was still in the midst of autumn. The leaves had only just turned yellow, unlike the north, which was full of fallen leaves. The winter water wasn't cold, the winter wind wasn't cold, and the winter soil wasn't frozen. Huaqing was named after flowers, and bright flowers bloomed all year round. Even during the coldest time of the year, a thick sweater was enough to last them through the winter. On a desolate beach, among the withered reeds, a lone bird flew across the water, then disappeared into the reeds without a trace. Then, as if it was threatened, it flapped its wings and flew away. Deep within the reeds, the silhouettes of people could be faintly seen. They were lying there motionlessly, like hunters waiting to catch their prey. "It's in front," a man's voice said. "I see it," another man's voice said. "How do we move?" "Together." "Of course I know we should move together, I just want to ask who's in front and who's behind." "One in front, one behind," the honest voice sounded a bit impatient. "You go from the front, I'll attack from behind." "Why don't you go from the front, I'll attack from behind." "Fine, I'll go from the front, you attack from behind." "Huh, why didn't you argue with me this time?" While the fat figure was still talking, the thin man who always liked to argue with him had already charged forward like a bony snake. His figure was tall and thin, but his movements were very agile. He disappeared into the reeds in an instant. "This guy," the fat figure sighed, then turned into an agile, wild boar and also charged towards the row of makeshift houses by the sea. Regardless of whether it was a large building or a marine project, they would first hire workers to build makeshift houses near the project as a temporary command post and resting place for the workers. This place was originally meant to be a port, but for some unknown reason the port project was stopped, and the makeshift houses lost their purpose. Perhaps due to other considerations, the makeshift houses were never demolished, enduring the wind and waves, but also taking in seabirds and crabs. The two of them moved quickly, and after a few difficult stealth movements, they had already moved to the side of the makeshift house. They hid behind a small clump of reeds, and after their eyes met, their bodies rushed forward like arrows or pigs released from bowstrings. When they were about to reach the door of the makeshift house, they ran back at a speed 10 times faster than when they left. Whoosh! Countless assassins in black appeared around them. Chapter 8:16. The men in black were like a group of well-trained ghosts. They quietly crawled out from the roof of the prefab house in the reeds. They formed a fan-shaped encirclement. Other than the path they came from, the other 3 paths were all blocked by them. They gave you two choices, run or die. Of course, this was under the condition that you could escape. If you couldn't, you would die. According to Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's style, they would fight if they could win and run if they couldn't. When Fang Yingxiong was about to run back into the reeds with his butt in the air, he noticed something unusual around him. Fang Haohen did not follow. Instead, he stopped at the edge of the reeds. Then step by step he walked in the direction of the makeshift house toward the men in black. Fang Yingying panicked. He turned around and shouted at Fang Haohen, "Fang Haohen, are you crazy?" Fang Haohen didn't respond and continued to walk toward the men in black. Fang Yingying turned around and dragged Fang Haohen's body. He shouted, "Hero, go, we are surrounded. Have you forgotten what junior martial uncle taught us? Safety first. You go, I won't go." Fang Haohen shook off Fang Yingying's pull and said in a hoarse voice, "They came out, which means we have found the right place. Our hard work has been worth it." "Of course I know we have found the right place, but don't you see how many people there are? 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Let's retreat first and go back to get reinforcements." "I can't go," Fang Haohen said firmly. "If we leave, they will leave too. Didn't we spend so much effort to find them just for this moment?" As Fang Haohen spoke, he was already standing not far from the group of men in black. Fang Yingying gritted his teeth, straightened his back and stood beside Fang Haohen. "If you're not here, I won't leave either. Today, us 2 brothers will fight to the death with them. This bunch of trash might not be able to keep us here." Fang Haohen said confidently. "Let's go back and forth, then save Li Ya. All right, for sister-in-law, big brother will fight it out with you. The wind is bleak and the water is cold. Heroes and warriors stand shoulder to shoulder." Fang Haohen stared fiercely at the men in black and said, "I'll go first. I'll go with you." The 2 of them rubbed their palms together and prepared to attack. Hualala. The group of black-clothed men shook their wrists, and each of them held a pitch-black pistol in their hands. The pitch-black muzzle was aimed at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's entire body. As long as someone gave the order, the 2 of them would be turned into sieves by these bullets. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, who were about to charge forward, stopped. The 2 of them looked at each other and raised their hands high up at the same time. "We surrender," Fang Yingying said. "If you have the ability, then fight with me for real." "What kind of hero is holding a gun?" Fang Haohen shouted. The black-clothed men parted to the sides, and a young man wearing white casual pants and a striped vest walked out. In such a desolate suburb, it was really surprising to see such a man dressed like a noble. Jiang Junling held an apple in his hand, and with a bite the juice flowed out, and when he chewed, it made a kacha-kacha sound. Jiang Junling ate the apple while looking at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, and said with a smile, "Fang Yan sent you? I wanted to come myself." Fang Haohen said firmly. He knew who Jiang Junling was, and he also knew what kind of deep hatred Jiang Junling had with his junior martial uncle. "Was Li Ya kidnapped by you guys?" "Here." Jiang Junling pointed to the makeshift house behind him and said, "If Li Ya is Du Qing's beautiful goddaughter, then she is indeed in our hands. However, it seems like it will be very difficult for you to take her away, right?" "We never thought of taking her away," Fang Yingying said righteously. "We just want to be with her." Fang Haohen looked at Fang Yingying in dissatisfaction, feeling that he had stolen his lines, and said, "Yes, we just want to be with her." Jiang Junling chuckled as he looked at the 2 of them and said, "As expected of someone from the Fang family, you guys are exactly the same as Fang Yan." Hearing Jiang Junling praise them for being exactly the same as junior martial uncle Fang Yan, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen both revealed smiles on their faces. But thinking about their current situation, the smile on their faces instantly disappeared. "We want to meet Li Ya," Fang Haohen said. Fang Yingying pointed at Fang Haohen and said, "The main thing is that he wants to see Li Ya. It doesn't matter if I see him or not. But it would be best if the 3 of us could be arranged together." "All right, since you guys have already made such a request." Jiang Junling threw away the apple core in his hand, took a towel from a black-clothed man and wiped his hands, then said with a smile, "For my old friend Fang Yan's sake, I will not satisfy any of you. Look, don't I have Fang Yan's style when I speak like this?" Fang Yingying nodded and said to Fang Haohen, "It really does look like it." Jiang Junling felt a little bored and said, "Capture them all." Thus, a few black-clothed men put away the guns in their hands and rushed over. In a group of 2, they carried handcuffs that looked translucent and had liquid rippling inside, wanting to handcuff Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan. No need to go through so much trouble. A hearty man's voice was heard. If you cuff them now, you will have to untie them in a while. Why bother? The reeds parted, and a man with long hair walked out with his head held high. Bai Li Lu. Fong Yingying was overjoyed. He waved at Bai Li Lu and shouted, "We are here, I see you." Bai Li Lu glanced at Fong Yingying and said, "You're so big it's not easy to not see you." Bai Li Lu walked straight to Jiang Junling and said with a smile, "Young Master Jiang, it's not the first time we've dealt with each other. I know your personality and you also understand my temper. I'll take them away and we'll discuss other things slowly. How about it? Give me a reason." Jiang Junling looked at Bai Li Lu and said with a smile, "Why?" "Because I'm standing in front of you. I'm afraid this reason won't convince me." Jiang Junling shook his head and refused. "Even if you were standing in front of me, you wouldn't be able to take them away." When he said this, 1/3 of the black-clothed men turned their guns and aimed at Bai Li Lu. Some of them took out silver-white disc-shaped objects, which could blast Bai Li Lu, Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan into thin air. Genetic bomb. Bai Li Lu pursed his lips and said with some annoyance, "These things again." Fong Yingying was shocked, thinking that Bai Li Lu did not know the danger of these things and quickly reminded him, "Big brother Bai Li, when those things explode it's very terrifying. Even rocks can melt into ashes." "I know," Bai Li Lu said with some impatience. "A long time ago your junior martial uncle reminded me that when I encounter these things, I should either kill the person directly or run far away to avoid being killed by them. I want to run far away but I still have to save you 2 idiots. What do you think I should do?" Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan thought about it seriously, and also began to worry about Bai Li Lu's situation. Jiang Junling looked at Bai Li Lu with a smile and said, "It's the people from Swallow Dock again. I really hate the people from Swallow Dock more and more now. Last time we parted at Lotus Temple I thought there would be a chance to see you again. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me. Bai Li Lu, do you think I don't dare to kill you?" "Of course you dare to kill me," Bai Li Lu said carelessly. "You are a scum who has no father or son and was expelled by your own family. What kind of things can't you do? Is there anything you don't dare to do in this world? Is there someone you don't dare to kill? It's good that you understand. We all know each other well, so there's no need to waste your breath." Jiang Junling's eyes were full of murderous intent. He was ready to kill. As long as he gave the order, the group of men in black behind him would be able to use Bai Li Lu, Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan as targets. There was also a group of masters scattered on both sides. They were the high priests that Jiang Junling had won over before. Later, because of his downfall, a group of them left, including the blind fisherman and the Xingyi master Bao Shi. The blind fisherman left because of the estrangement between him and Bao Shi, and it was purely because he couldn't get what he wanted from him. However, there was still a group of masters whose lives were in his hands, and who had to work for him stayed by his side. Even if Bai Li Lu and the others were not killed by the random gunshots, occasionally a fish that slipped through the net would be attacked by the group and chopped into meat paste. After Jiang Junling left the Jiang family, he became a lonely ghost wandering in the wilderness. He looked miserable and pitiful, but it also freed him from the shackles brought by his identity. He could use all kinds of means to achieve his own goals and scrupulously. For example, now he unabashedly took those murderous maniacs, members of the arsenal who had the most sophisticated weapons with him as bodyguards. If it had been in the past, it would have been a big taboo. "Don't be impulsive." Bai Li Lu waved his hand and said with a smile, "I know what you want to do, but I advise you not to be impulsive." "Oh?" Jiang Junling looked at Bai Li Lu and smiled gently and comfortably. He said, "Although I really don't have any entertainment on this seaside, when I'm tired of playing a game, I naturally want to give up and change to another game. If you don't have any more fun games, then I can only say goodbye forever." "There really is," Bai Li Lu said with a serious face. "I know you like playing games. Today I'll play with you to the fullest." He clapped his hands and there was a slight whistling sound. That sound was very strange, like a buzzing sound in the air. It was not very clear, but everyone present could hear it. When this sound rang out, a scene that made people's scalps tingle appeared. Countless venomous snakes rushed out from the reeds. They entangled with each other and hissed. They were so densely packed that they blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they swept towards them. Chapter 8:17. This was a snake disaster. It was the first time many of them had seen so many snakes and so many different kinds of poisonous snakes gathered together. Their bodies were entangled together, swaying and twisting left and right. Their heads were raised high, and their triangular eyes flashed with a murderous glint. They opened their mouths and spat out their long or short venomous tongues. When they slid, their abdomens rubbed against the grass, making a hissing sound. Countless venomous snakes swarmed in from all directions, treating everyone in the encirclement as their sumptuous meal. A man wearing a gray cloak appeared. His head was covered with a wide black hat. His face could not be seen clearly, but his gloomy and sinister aura could be felt. He was holding a flute-like instrument in his hands, and the buzzing sound came from that instrument. Whoosh! Someone among the black-clothed men took out a silver disc and threw out a few of these weapons. No matter how many poisonous snakes there were, they would be corroded into air. Look, I have helpers too. Bailey Lu looked at Zhang Junling and said, and I have the advantage in numbers. Zhang Junling smiled and looked at Bailey Lu. He pointed at the poisonous snakes and said, do you think that these few poisonous snakes can threaten me? If I just throw a few cockroach number 5, I'm afraid more than half of these poisonous snakes will die, right? Even if there are a few that escaped, I'm afraid they won't have the guts to act violently. Zhang Junling shook his head and said, if it's just this kind of game, then it's really regrettable. It's too easy to clear the game. Instead, it makes people lose interest in playing. What if I tell you that many of the poisonous snakes in the snake formation have miniature bombs installed on them? Bailey Lu laughed and said, although the power of those miniature bombs is not as powerful as your cockroach number 5, if they explode together with the cockroach number 5, the scene will be spectacular, right? Bailey Lu pointed at Zhang Junling and said, you, everyone around you and me, I'm afraid that no one here will survive. Zhang Junling still had a mocking smile on his face and said, do you think I will believe that? If I were you, I wouldn't believe it either, Bailey Lu said. But I don't want to prove anything to you. What should I do? Aren't you afraid of death? It's not that I'm bragging, but our Bailey family doesn't have long lives. The more talented they are, the shorter their lifespans. This is because there's no way to cross the threshold of the heavenly Tao realm. Most of them go mad before they die. My talent is the highest in the Bailey family over the centuries. I believe that if I don't step into the heavenly Tao realm, I'll die soon. Before I die, I'll do something good for my friend and perish together with the opponent he hates the most. I believe he'll be grateful to me for life, right? Zhang Junling's face turned gloomy as he said, this kind of negotiation method is really original. I really don't know how to refute you. But if I let him go just because of your threat, won't it be a joke if it gets out? This is the problem you need to consider. Others can't help you. Bai Lilu crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking like he was not anxious at all. But you look like you're in a dilemma. Let me tell you that there is a bomb in the snake formation. Although you are suspicious, you will not dare to play with your life. Although you don't want to admit it in your heart, you must think that you're superior to us. If the person standing in front of you was Fang Yan, and you were asked to perish together with him, you might think that this matter can be considered. But the person standing in front of you is me, Fang Yan's two good-for-nothing martial nephews. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan looked at each other thinking, how are we good for nothing? We're already very promising, all right? You feel that it's unfair in your heart, right? You feel that dying in such a way is too unfair for you. But you also know that the longer this matter drags on, the more advantageous it is for us. If you can't get rid of us in the shortest time possible, then more people will come to help. You're no longer young Master Jiang, but a wandering ghost that was chased out of the Jiang family. But don't forget, this is Flower City. There are countless of Du Qing's brothers and good friends here. You kidnapped Du Qing's goddaughter, wouldn't he fight you to the death? Looks like I can only surrender and accept your conditions, Zhang Junling said with a smile. We can also fight to the death and perish together. Zhang Junling looked at the Snake Lord who was playing the instrument to control the snakes and said sarcastically, your master died in the hands of Fang Yan. I didn't expect that you would eventually become a lackey under Fang Yan. If the previous Snake Lord knew that his disciple was so spineless, he would have regretted passing the position of Snake Lord to you. The Snake Lord stopped playing and the venomous snakes began to gather around him. These pointy monsters and the group of black-clothed men with sharp weapons in their hands formed a standoff. The Snake Lord looked at Jiang Junling and said, "My current name is Fang Shida. I am a member of the Fang clan." "Oh, Fang Shida, a good name." The sarcasm on the Snake Lord's face became even stronger. "You're wrong." The Snake Lord looked at Jiang Junling and said, "Even if my master was still alive and knew that I was working for Fang Yan, he wouldn't be disappointed in me. You don't understand snakes and you don't understand the lineage of the Snake Lord. Although we are the Snake Lords in the eyes of humans, aren't we still beasts that can't be shown in public? You and the people around you, when did they ever see us as humans? Including my master when he was working for you, didn't you also see him as a killing weapon, a beast that you ordered around? I'm different. I can sense Fang Yan's kindness and I know that he is sincerely thinking for my sake. He returned me the snake eye long ago, and as long as I am willing I can leave or rebel at any time. But it is also because of this that I know that he sees me as a friend, as a brother. I have freedom, I have dignity, and I can also feel warmth from humans. I already have much more than my master, so how could he regret passing the position of Snake Lord to me just because I'm living so well? Didn't we pass down the torch so that one day the Snake Lord lineage can be upright and honorable people? The Snake Lord still spoke with a thick Xianxia accent, and because he didn't usually speak much, his ability to express himself was a bit shaky. However, because every word he said came from the bottom of his heart, it made others feel that he was very sincere and that every word he said was from the bottom of his heart. He was very satisfied with his current state and he was very grateful for everything he had right now. Clap, clap, clap. Jiang Junling applauded again and again, then looked at the Snake Lord and said, "Then I really have to congratulate you." "Let him go," the Snake Lord said coldly. He stared at Bai Xiu with his snake-like triangular eyes and said, "Or be torn to shreds by them. After hearing what you said just now, I feel that you and Fang Yan are really a pair of brothers who have gone through life and death with each other. I'm so envious." Jiang Junling chuckled and said, "But as a brother, you're living a comfortable life. Haven't you thought about your poor little sister?" Jiang Junling clapped his hands and said, "Bring her out." As soon as he said that, the metal door of the makeshift house was pushed open again. Two men in black helped a woman out, one on the left and one on the right. The woman's right leg was already lame, so it was extremely inconvenient for her to walk, and her lame leg was almost dragging on the ground. His head was lowered and his long hair covered his entire face, making it difficult for others to see his appearance. Thump. The two men in black threw her to the ground and the woman lost her balance and fell to the ground. She seemed to still be conscious and her body was still wriggling. She tried to get up, but because her hands were cuffed by the genetic hand and her leg was seriously injured, she failed several times. The Snake Lord's hands were clenched into fists, and the veins on his hands were bulging. He clenched his teeth and the muscles on his face kept twitching. Even though he hadn't seen the woman's face, he already knew who she was. How could he not know who she was? That was her, his entire life. He had always thought that they would live together forever, 1 life, 2 lives, 3 lives, or even 10 lives without being separated. But she fell in love with a man who shouldn't have loved her, and he himself was heartbroken by him. He thought that the two of them would never meet again after the last time they parted. He thought that he had a new life and she should also have her own. Occasionally he would think about where she went. Was she doing well now? But he never thought that she would live like this, that she would live such a miserable life. Jiang Junling looked at the Snake Lord and said, "You should find her familiar, right? Maybe she's a little different from the woman you knew before, but I promise you she is the person in your heart." Jiang Junling took out a silver box from his pocket, shook it in front of the Snake Lord and said, "If you aren't nearsighted, you should be familiar with this thing, right?" He walked in front of the woman and grabbed her hair. He pulled her head up and said to the Snake Lord, "I can prove to you that I have never played a joke on you." The woman's face was covered in bruises, indicating that she had suffered a lot before. The most terrifying thing was that her left eye socket was empty, like a tree pit that should have carried a big tree. Now that the tree had been uprooted, only the big pit was left to prove that the tree had once existed. "Sister," the Snake Lord screamed. Chapter 8:18. Before Bailey Lu came to Huaqing, Fang Yan gave him 3 words. Be careful. 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 Fang Yan stirred up the situation in Yanjing and manipulated the overall situation. But he still had to save his friends. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's search finally found some clues. Fang Yan was too busy to attend to other matters, so he let Bailey Lu come over to help with the matters here. Fang Yan once talked to Bailey Lu about Jiang Junling. His evaluation of Jiang Junling was, Jiang Junling is above average and he has no bottom line. Bailey Lu thought for a few seconds and finally understood the subtext of Fang Yan's words. Jiang Junling is a smart bastard. Bailey Lu was not afraid of bastards. No matter how stupid they are, they can't beat his miraculous fist. But he was afraid of smart people. Smart people are much more terrible than bastards. When he saw Jiang Junling applaud, he knew that he was ready to use his ultimate move. Isn't it always like this in TV and movies? Sure enough, when the general revealed his trump card, he immediately got rid of one of his generals. Fang Wang was a general who truly held real power. The thousands of troops and thousands of poisonous snakes under his command were the key to their victory on this trip. If Snake Lords surrendered, they would be in a disadvantageous situation again. Sister. Snake Lord screamed in a sad voice. Even though he had already decided to sever all ties with them, when he saw his sister being tortured and even having one of her eyes dug out by them, he felt as if hundreds of bugs were gnawing at his heart. He still felt so uncomfortable that he hovered between life and death. Hearing Snake Lord's voice, the woman in black finally raised her head and looked over. One of her eyes was empty, and the other was covered by messy hair. It was muddy, brown, and bloodshot. She looked like a horrible monster. Brother. She called hoarsely. Her voice was dry as if she hadn't spoken for a long time. Before she could even say the word brother, her remaining eye socket was already filled with tears, and large drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. Are you okay? Seeing his sister's expression, Snake Lord felt even more uncomfortable. She called him brother again. She admitted their relationship again. In that dark and despairing childhood, they were the only light in each other's eyes. In the bone-chilling winter in the mountains, the two of them snuggled up to each other for warmth. They faced death together as well as the challenges of various poisonous snakes. One became the Snake Lord and the other became the Snake Lord's sister. They were two humanoid monsters, two venomous snakes that could speak the human language. However, how could they fall in love with humans? In the eyes of humans, they were just monsters and venomous snakes. Brother. The woman in black called out again. Her voice sounded even more miserable as she sobbed. Snake Lord stared at Jiang Junling fiercely and said, "Let her go. Seems like you two know each other." Jiang Junling played with the small silver box in his hand and said with a smile, "This is the only way to make this game fun." Jiang Junling raised the small box in his hand to the Snake Lord and asked, "You should know what this is, right?" Snake Lord knew, but he was unwilling to answer. Because the answer to this question was too cruel for them. "This is your sister's eye, which is also what you call the snake's eye." Jiang Junling put the silver box under the sun and raised his head to look at it carefully. He said, "It is said that if you control the snake's eye, you can control the fate of a snake slave. Well, you call yourself the Snake Lord. That's not important. You can call yourself anything. I've never believed this saying. I think it's mostly made up. Why don't we do an experiment with this eye today?" "Don't hurt her," Snake Lord shouted anxiously. Jiang Junling looked at Snake Lord seriously and said, "It seems that the rumors are true. But why don't I hurt her? You can hurt me, so why can't I hurt her? You're not my friend, right? If you're willing to be my friend, then I'll take the initiative to give you this eye." "Don't be fooled by him." Bailey Lu hurriedly stopped him. He didn't know much about Snake Lord, so he didn't know what kind of person he was. Although Fang Yan had told him to believe his words, if he was instigated by Jiang Junling, these poisonous snakes would turn around and become sharp weapons against them. At that time it would be too late to cry. "Fang Yan, don't listen to his lies. How did they use your sister in the past? What was the result? How did they treat your sister after she was no longer of any use? If you stand on his side today, you'll soon end up like your sister. At that time, not only will you not be able to save your sister, but you'll also lose your life." "I understand." Snake Lord glanced at Bailey Lu and said in a hoarse voice, "I understand. I know what kind of people they are and I know what they want to do. In their eyes, we're just playthings that they can manipulate. That's how my master died. My master's master died the same way. They know the skills of us snake keepers, so they secretly sent people to Xianxia to look for us. They never treated us as human beings. Except for Fang Yan, no one treats us as human beings. Bailey Lu was speechless. For a long time he actually had a strong rejection of Snake Lord in his heart. He always felt that this person was very dirty and very poisonous, different from the warriors who practiced martial arts in the open and above board. They walked the unorthodox path. According to martial arts novels, they belonged to the evil path, and they were the targets of the righteous people who wanted to be eradicated. She hadn't expected Fang Shi to be fully aware of all this, but he had never shown any signs of abnormality. Perhaps in his heart, it was enough to have Fang Yan's approval. But she's my sister. I can't not save her. Snake Lord said firmly. What a deep sibling love. This kind of brother is touching. Jiang Junling said with a smile. You're an expert in raising snakes. You know how to save your sister. As long as you do it, I'll return the snake's eye to you. And I'll let you leave with your sister and we'll never see each other again. Fang Yan, think about it carefully. Bailey Lu's expression was serious, and his eyes emitted a frightening light. If they were bitten by this venomous snake today, their entire army might be annihilated. Fang Yan, how can you do this? Have you forgotten what junior martial uncle did to you? Fang Yingying shouted. You traitor. A snake is a snake. Can never be as loyal and unyielding as a human. Fang Haohen hated this kind of despicable behavior to the bone. How could he betray someone just because he wanted to? Snake Lord's eyes were filled with pain, and the yellow muscles on his face kept twitching. His body slowly lay down and his eyes looked at his sister who was sitting on the ground. He made hissing sounds. Snake Lord's younger sister was also lying on the ground, hissing in the same manner. Their movements were like snakes and their voices were like snakes. At first glance, it seemed like two human-shaped snakes were talking in snake language. Snake Lord's eyes were filled with tears. Hiss. Snake Lord's sister nodded at her brother, and her surviving eye was also crying. Hiss. Snake Lord made a very sharp sound. Hiss. Snake Lord's sister responded with the same sharp sound. Snake Lord looked at his sister with gentle and loving eyes, and a buzzing sound came from his mouth. A fiery red scorpion crawled out of Snake Lord's body. The scorpion shook its head as if it had just woken up. Snake Lord's sister smiled happily, as if the fiery red scorpion was a good friend she hadn't seen for many years. She stretched out her hand to the scorpion. The scorpion looked at Snake Lord and quickly crawled towards Snake Lord's sister. Then it jumped and stood on the palm of Snake Lord's sister. Hiss. Snake Lord's sister said something to the scorpion. The scorpion made a hissing sound, and its body retreated as if it knew something terrible. Snake Lord's sister held the scorpion tightly, and then stuffed its head and body into her mouth. Hiss. The scorpion's tail swung desperately, and it used its poisonous stinger to slap Snake Lord's sister's face and other parts of her body. Snake Lord's sister looked at Snake Lord, and her face was filled with joy and reluctance to part forever. Gotcha! A crisp sound was heard. Fire Scorpion's tail slapped even more fiercely, and then it raised high, maintaining that posture and could no longer be put down. Snake Lord's sister's face showed a painful expression, and dark red scorpion blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Gotcha! She chewed hard and then rolled the whole scorpion into her mouth and swallowed it. Gulp! Her throat squirmed and then her body swelled up like an inflated balloon. Pop. Her body made a sound like popping beans and the blood in her body seemed to be boiling. Blood flowed out of her 7 orifices, and the blood that flowed out was steaming and bubbling. Brother! Snake Lord's sister's body softly collapsed to the ground, and her weak eyes were still tightly grasping her brother. She hated this world but she liked her brother. She thought that she had lost him forever, but she didn't expect to see him again before she died. This was really the happiest thing in her life. I saw Master. That you're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.